have to buy clothes. So everything you pay double and twice and three times. So you end up with no money at the end. What I'm living right now is exactly what I lived in 2024. So it's the same nightmare happening again.
A few days ago, Rashana drove back to Tyre to check on their house. It's still there, still standing. But hundreds of buildings and homes across the south of Lebanon have been destroyed by Israeli missile strikes and demolitions. The town of Debin is a couple of miles north of the Israeli border. I'm standing on the site of a massive strike. We just understood this was a fruit factory. Here they used to prepare pickles, olive oil, and other food. But it is now turned into complete rubble. And I can see a big crater that seems to be the exact location where a rocket must have hit. And there's lots of destruction here. This is just a sample of what we have been seeing around as we traveled in the south, as we moved from one town to another. We are just meeting the owner of the factory, the food factory. شو اسم حضرتك؟
عبد الله ابراهيم.
عبد الله، وقت اكتشفت شو صار شو كان احساسك؟
يعني مثل كل العالم ما قادرين نعمل شيء.
Abdullah told me that 2 days ago he has brought his kids to the site just to see what happened to their home, and he said that they started crying. It's very hard to describe the level of sadness in the eyes of Abdullah. He has been coming every single day to this place just to stare at what happened to his property. There's nothing he can do. He can just stare at the loss of everything he owned. For now, the Israeli army is still occupying parts of southern Lebanon. They say for the purposes of security, to eliminate the threat of Hezbollah. But when or if displaced Lebanese people return home, large parts of the south won't be recognizable as the place they once knew.
Next year, I will be 40 years old. My whole life been about war with Israel. The only thing that I'm hoping for is peace. I want to live in peace in this country. I never want to pack my bags again. I want to live in Lebanon, but I want to live in the south of Lebanon, where we belong.
Everyone hopes that they will be able to go home and that they find a home to go back to. So even if it's in ruins, they're gonna go back because it's their land, it's their home. Over the years, over generations, this area has not been stable, ever. So do I hope that this is the last war? Yes, I do. Do I know that it's gonna be the last war? I don't, but I hope for it.
That's it for assignment. The program was presented by Karine Torbey. The producers were Nick Holland and Danny Abi Khalil.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho.
Good morning, Manitoba. It is Thursday, June 18th, and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Thanks for joining us. Let's say hello to our team this morning. Abby Adiemi is our technical producer. Darren Morash is our YouTube live stream producer, and Sierra Sanders is our show director this morning. And Heather Wells is here with news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, an advocate says Manitoba has to do more to make health care accessible to migrants. The child of a work permit holder was about to lose coverage on their 18th birthday. That child has leukemia, and the Fredericton-based migrant activist, Tracy Glynn, says she's thankful the province decided to make an exception in this case, but she says governments are failing migrants. So we'll hear more from her. Parents in the Hanover School Division in southeast Manitoba are being told they must make health decisions for mature minors That move contradicts Manitoba law stating anyone 16 or older has the right to make their own health care decisions. The move caught the attention of the education minister, who met with Hanover School Division Board this week. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Coming up today on Information Radio, if you're a soccer fan, you know it. Canada playing Qatar tonight in the FIFA World Cup, and you can watch the match on the big screen among the birds and the trees at Assiniboine Park tonight. We'll hear more about that. As well, we will speak with 3 Winnipeggers about their thoughts on the quality of life in our city. This comes after a Probe research poll found most respondents in Winnipeg said the city had gotten worse over the past 4 years. And personal electric vehicles. They seem to be everywhere these days, and as e-bikes and scooters become more popular, there's been some confusion around the rules of the road. But in Morden, Manitoba, new traffic bylaws are now in place. We are going to speak with their chief of police about that. Taking a quick look at some weather conditions, a chilly start to the day here in Winnipeg. Currently 9 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. Today we are looking at sunny skies, mix of sun and cloud this afternoon, and a high of 21. Hopefully we will start warming up soon. Lots to come on Information Radio.
On cue.
Imagining Ted Whale sitting in for Todd Power. Natalia Lafourcade is one of the most influential voices in modern Latin music. And last summer, her songs became the soundtrack for the children of Mexican immigrants who are fighting back against ICE raids. She'll be here to tell you about that and her incredible story.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The United States is once again threatening to shake up its military presence in Europe. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is at NATO headquarters in Brussels. He blasted members over their defense spending and says it's shameful some EU allies did not allow U.S. forces to use their bases to launch strikes on Iran.
Europe was not supposed to be a dependency of the United States. That's not what Winston Churchill or Charles de Gaulle or Konrad Adenauer wanted or expected. No, Europe was supposed to be a military power, allied with a strong America.
Hegseth also used the meeting of defense ministers to announce a full review of U.S. forces in Europe. Washington has repeatedly threatened to push back against allies, including a formal troop pullout from Germany last month. Hegseth says this latest 6-month evaluation will look at exactly where all remaining soldiers are stationed.
It's a review that some countries will fail and others will pass with flying colors. In the end, the review is intended to both improve U.S. force posture and basing and strengthen NATO 3.0.
Hegseth says the alliance must move quickly toward a model where Europe takes primary responsibility for its own conventional defense. Pakistan says a deal between Iran and the U.S. is in effect. They are the key negotiators who helped broker the agreement. The Memorandum of Understanding calls for the full resumption of maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz and the end of the war on all fronts. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing has the latest from northern Israel.
We hope that it will end and there will be peace, but we don't sure now.
Yoshi Lucci, CEO of Shalomi Local Council, says there have been many signings in the past, many declarations of peace. His community sits meters from the border with southern Lebanon and fears the threat hasn't been removed.
I don't think until Hezbollah will go from Lebanon that this will end.
The ending, he says, must come through diplomacy, not military actions.
This was not easy, I can tell you.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed the 14-point Memorandum of Understanding ending the war with Iran yesterday in France after the G7 gathering. He called it a major win. Iran's top negotiator, Mohammad Bakr Ghalibaf, called it a failure for the U.S. Trump withdrew one of his initial reasons for attacking Iran with Israel more than 3 months ago, now saying it would be unfair for Tehran not to have ballistic missiles, having previously vowed to obliterate them. A senior Israeli official told Reuters there have been, quote, stubborn negotiations with the U.S. on the issue of continuing its deployment of troops in southern Lebanon. Yesterday, one Israeli soldier was killed, 7 others wounded. The soldiers were walking near the Litani River when there was an explosion. Israel launched multiple strikes on Lebanon. It claims to be targeting sites used by the Iran-backed militia Hezbollah, flattening Lebanese communities in the south in the process. The Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, previously described the agreement as a positive factor pushing towards peaceful solutions and ending the state of war. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Shlomi in northern Israel.
Ukraine targeted Moscow with a large drone strike today. The attack hit the Russian capital's oil refinery for the second time in a week. A drone also slammed directly into a nearby residential building, injuring 16 people. Russian officials claim they shot down dozens of drones over the capital. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his strategy is working. He says targeting infrastructure will force Russia's Vladimir Putin to negotiate. Canada's birth rate is at a record low, and South Korea could have a solution. That nation is also experiencing declining birth rates, but the South Korean government has been embracing new methods to boost the country's population. The CBC's Jennifer Yoon has more from South Korea.
Newlywed bliss. Chang Ye-eun and Jin Hyun-gu are practically glowing as they talk about future kids at a park in Daegu, South Korea.
많으면 많을수록 좋겠지만 적어도 한 명은 있어야 된다고 생각합니다.
At least one, but as many as possible, says Jin. The couple didn't meet through friends or at work. They were set up by their local government at a speed dating event. Their matchmaker, also their district mayor, Lee Tae-hoon.
교육시키면서 이제 지구 뜨거워진 이유를 알고 있잖아요.
We teach kids about global warming. We should do the same about population decline, says Lee. South Korea's population is expected to dwindle by a third in the 2070s. The country has spent the equivalent of 360 billion Canadian dollars on policies to try and boost birth rates, from matchmaking programs to baby bonuses and tax breaks.
I'm probably slightly skeptical on.
But population decline expert Maxwell Hart says it's not clear if policies like that actually boost births. Canada, too, is facing a record low fertility rate. Hart, a professor at Queen's University, says populations are shrinking around the world, and for some good reasons.
Like women's educational attainment. If we think about people's, freedom or contraceptives or sanitation, these aren't things that we want to turn around.
A shrinking population, Hart says, doesn't need to be a bad thing. Hart says rather than looking at policies to convince people to have more babies, governments could also look at policies to improve quality of life for an aging population. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Daegu, South Korea.
There's a funeral today in Mississauga for an Ontario provincial police officer. Constable Tarun Bali was killed on the job last week. He was hit by a car in the town of Hearst in the province's north. Family, friends, colleagues, and dignitaries are attending the service for the 29-year-old. The driver has been charged with first-degree murder. Wildfires engulfed Newfoundland's Conception Bay North nearly a year ago. Rebuilding is still a struggle for the people who live there. Laura Howells explains.
We knew the house was gone, but when we came in, saw it unbearable.
When fires swallowed George McNeil's house, only the chimney was left standing. But now a new house is sprouting up. Wooden beams, pink insulation, and 2 rocking chairs waiting on the porch.
It's going to be a nice house when it's done, but we had a nice house before too. So.
Fires consumed more than 200 homes in this area last year, burning over 10,000 hectares, rare destruction for this province, leaving tree skeletons and blackened ground. But now, construction also dots the landscape.
So there's a lot of houses being built here right now.
Mark Plowman is deputy mayor for a town in the region.
It's some relief because some of them have been living in other accommodations or trailers, since the fire.
He stands near huge piles of debris and tree cuttings. So many people clearing up, the town has to figure out what to do with it all. But not everyone can rebuild.
People who didn't have insurance still, looking for how they might be able to return to the community.
Jo Hogan hopes her new house is ready soon. But it doesn't get her old life back. Fire forced family to move farther away.
I lost my home, which was devastating, but I feel like I lost
my daughter and my children.
She's nervous about the coming fire season, but looks forward to simple pleasures.
I just can't wait to go home and go to bed.
Laura Howells, CBC News, Conception Bay North.
A sea of red and white is taking over Vancouver today. Canada plays its second match at the Men's World Cup. The team faces Qatar later this afternoon. The CBC's Dan Burrett has a look at the energy in the city.
We will have our banners, we will have our flags, we will have smoke.
Team Canada supporter Darcy Kerr is inviting thousands of fans to join her for a march to BC Place ahead of the game.
Everybody's being asked to wear red, be loud, show your support for Canada, get ready to be holding banners, singing, waving flags. Come with your friends, your family.
Kerr's partner, Mike Brazell, says Team Canada is setting an example for future players.
This has set the pipeline, I think, up now for a long time for us to be in the World Cup and deserve to be there and make people afraid of us.
And Darcy's sister, Nikki Brown, is visiting from Calgary. Amid concerns about Alberta separatism, she says Team Canada is a great focus.
And just enjoying the atmosphere of what it is when we all come together to celebrate a team.
Fans of Qatar are also feeling confident.
During the game, we are fighting Canada. After the game, we are brothers and we love Canada. Give me a hug.
Okay. Ian Tostenson with the BC Restaurant and Food Services Association says business at some bars and restaurants is up 40%.
It's igniting an enthusiasm in the city that we haven't seen in a long time.
And Destination Vancouver says hotel bookings are up for June, with committed occupancy at 65%. Dan Burrett, CBC News, Vancouver.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. You can listen on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on our YouTube live stream or on your CBC News app. Well, coming up on the show, a parliamentary committee is recommending Canada hits the brakes on expanding MAID to people dealing solely with mental illness. We'll talk about where this leaves advocates who have been fighting for it. But up first on the show, we will hear from a quilter taking part in a national quilting convention that is back in Winnipeg after 22 years. It's time now for news headlines with Heather Wells. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, outreach workers at Street Links rolled up their sleeves this week for a hepatitis A shot. The not-for-profit is one of at least 3 Winnipeg outreach groups trying to curb the spread of the virus by vaccinating staff. Michelle Wesley at Street Links works with people experiencing homelessness, and public health says they are among the most vulnerable to contracting the disease. The new head of Sport Manitoba says one of his big tasks is making sure everyone has a chance to play. Evan Andrews says a big challenge remains ensuring no young athletes are mistreated or left on the sidelines, regardless of background, ability, or geography. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. This morning on Information Radio, a big hello and thank you to our team. Darren Morash is our YouTube live stream producer. Abby Adiemi, our technical producer, is also here with a look at the weather forecast. Hey, Abby.
Hi, Chloe. Good morning. We're waking up to more like a quiet day, but it's cool outside. If you step out this morning, if you're in the southern part of the province, you will notice the cool air around you. Though the province is going to be facing more like this split day. We're going to see mild conditions in the south, and then you notice the damp and cloudier system keeping the north pretty cool. Here in the Red River Valley region, Winnipeg and nearby areas, cool start, hovering between 9 and 5 degrees at this time at the airport. Cloudy skies, you'd notice the winds come from the northwest, bringing conditions today more like a sunny high of 21 later, before we see that overnight mix of cloudy conditions and a very slim chance of showers. And across the southern regions, we're seeing 8 in the Pembina Valley 10 in the Westmount region, and the Parkland region enjoying some sunshine at 7 degrees at this time. But up north, it's a different story. It's still pretty cool in the Churchill area. We're still dealing with some foggy conditions there since yesterday. Temperatures hovering just near 2 degrees right now in the Churchill area. But for Winnipeg, we're heading for 21 today. Right now, just hovering near 10 degrees.
All right, we'll get there, Abby. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Abby Adiemi. Sierra Sanders is here, show director, also keeping an eye on the commute. Good morning, Sierra.
Hi, Chloe. It's pretty quiet out there so far on the streets. Haven't heard about too much going on out there here in the city or in the surrounding areas. So to me, it sounds like things are moving pretty smoothly as the morning kicks off. But if that does change throughout the morning, I'd love to hear about it. So give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Quilters from across the country are gathering in Winnipeg this week for a national convention. Organizers say it's the first time in 22 years that the event has been hosted in this city. Audrey Beaudry is a third-generation quilter who has been quilting for almost 35 years, and she was at the last convention in Winnipeg back in 2004, and she joins us now. Good morning, Audrey.
Good morning.
So, how are you feeling about the quilting convention being back here in Winnipeg?
Very excited. Very excited.
I believe it started, does it start today or yesterday?
Yesterday was set up. Today it starts at 9:30 in the morning, and it goes Friday and Saturday also 9:30 starts.
Amazing. Okay, so full days, all quilting. Can you talk to us about how you got into quilting to begin with?
I'm a craft. My family's a crafter, and I sewed my first dress at probably age 6. And my mother got into quilting when I was in my 20s, and I just followed her.
Incredible. We've got, if you're watching on our YouTube live stream for our listeners here, we've got some gorgeous photos of your quilts kind of cycling through. The colors are absolutely gorgeous. Do you remember your very first quilt? Do you remember what it looked like?
It was from a pattern from Chatelaine magazine.
Incredible.
It was trees, and I did all the seasons across.
Lovely. So when it comes to a quilting convention, what's the energy like at one of these? Because I know quilting, I know that people get together to do it, but typically it's a pretty solo activity.
Well, there's a lot of excitement. So probably hundreds of quilts have come in from across the country. They're juried in, which means there'll be prizes and awards, and there's a merchant small that you could buy machinery, fabric, anything you need for quilting, and probably some other crafts too. And there's the local guilds have concurrent shows, and I'm in the Modern Quilt Guild, and I have a quilt hanging in their show, and it's improv piecing.
What does that mean?
Well, doing it without a pattern. So the way this one came about, you'll be able to see it there if any of your listeners go. It's a black and white mostly, and I laser cut a whole bunch of little pieces of fabric, and I had too many for the project I was doing, so I made this quilt.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
What keeps you at it? What do you get from quilting?
Lots of things. For one thing, I find running fabric through a sewing machine as meditative. It's kind of a stress reducer. There's always new things to learn. There's artistry with colors. There's math and geometry to do. And probably the number one is being at it for 35 years, there are friends. You get strong friend groups. Like I have a few friend groups that we meet often on YouTube and quilt, not YouTube, Zoom and quilt together.
Oh, incredible. What do you talk about when you're on Zoom all quilting together?
Well, our lives were a support group for each other. I was with one of the groups I was with. We traveled to the UK together and did quilting and fabric related stuff tour and a big show there. And we have what we call ta-da moments where we show what we're finishing or what we're working on, or sometimes it's problem solving. Sometimes we're swatching stuff or explaining tools to each other, or yeah.
Oh, I love a ta-da moment. I know personally, I have a few quilts that family members have made for me, and it's just extra special wrapping yourself in a quilt that you know someone has made with so much love compared to just any old blanket. And I know that you also run a small charity. Tell us about it. How is quilting involved in that?
So the charity is called Launch Quilts. It's pretty new, and we just started in January. And what we do is volunteers make and donate quilts for kids aging out of foster care.
Oh, that's awesome.
So age appropriate for 18, and yeah. So we're having a lot of fun with that.
That's it must be so special to be able to gift those quilts. Audrey, for folks who either have never quilted before or maybe they're curious, how would you recommend that they take in the convention if they just want to go look around?
They can just stay. Like, the show could take them half a day.
Wow.
Just to look at the show. Yeah.
So there's lots to see. Audrey, I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you also for sending those beautiful photos that we had on our live stream here. You're incredibly talented.
Thank you.
That was Audrey Beaudry. She has been quilting for roughly 35 years, and she's participating in the first Quilt Canada convention hosted here in Winnipeg in 22 years. The event began yesterday with setup and runs until Saturday.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
The time is 6:21. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen. It's been a long and emotionally charged debate whether to expand medical assistance in dying to people whose sole underlying condition is a mental illness. As we've been hearing in the news, a parliamentary committee examining the issue with members from the Senate and House of Commons is now recommending putting that expansion on hold indefinitely. But the issue is far from resolved. Joining me now with more on this is Christy Kirkup, national health reporter with the Globe and Mail. Good morning, Christy.
Good morning, Chloe.
So what stands out to you from these recommendations?
Well, I think, Chloe, the big takeaway here is that the majority of members of a committee that were looking on access to MAID for patients whose sole underlying condition is mental illness believe that this procedure should not be legally allowed as of March of 2027, which is actually the current timeline for implementation. It will be legal as of March unless there is to be legislative change to this timeline. And so the committee has gone further than any other committee before it, recommending, again, that access should be shut down, that it should be barred for patients living with mental illness. And I'll just note that at the Globe and Mail where I work, we've previously reported that the Carney government is prepared to table legislation on this. We don't know what the legislation is going to say, whether they, again, go all the way in terms of what the committee is recommending here to shut this down, or if they're going to delay the implementation timeline, which I will point out has happened twice in the past under the previous government.
Can you talk us through some of the resistance to expanding MAID for mental health?
For sure. So, Chloe, the majority of members of this committee outlined how they heard witness testimony from a number of different experts and academics, for example, about deep concerns that persist when it comes to allowing patients to access MAID who are living with mental illness, patients, facing a number of risks according to these experts. For example, gaps, severe gaps that exist for mental health supports in this country in the Canadian healthcare system, as well as disability rights groups warning about added vulnerabilities for persons living with disabilities, including, for example, seniors. I'll point out, though, that the committee was not unanimous in its findings. This was a special joint committee of MPs and senators, and 4 senators have put together a dissenting report on this, and they believe that this matter should be referred, Chloe, to the Supreme Court of Canada in order to make a determination on MAID eligibility. And also they take issue with the nature of the parliamentary committee hearings that just took place, because they believe they were not balanced in nature, and point to the fact that a vast majority of witnesses who were called were opposed to MAID for patients living with mental illness.
Christy, what are advocates for this expansion arguing?
So the key argument from advocates is that they believe that this is really a matter of human rights and also legal rights. And they point to the original Supreme Court of Canada decision that took place more than a decade ago that gave way for the legalization of MAID, for example, for patients with terminal physical conditions. And as well, the law has since been changed as a result of a Quebec court challenge that eventually led to legislation from the past federal government that allowed for patients with persisting, incurable physical conditions to apply for MAID under what's called Track 2. So they believe, as far as for patients living with mental illness, that they too have charter rights, and that by telling them that they cannot access MAID because they live with mental illness, that this amounts to an infringement of those rights. And there is actually a court challenge that's already underway. A lawsuit was filed back in August of 2024 by a patient living with bipolar disorder over this very issue, over the fact that she and other patients living with mental illness are being barred from accessing MAID.
What political support remains for expanding MAID in this way?
So certainly there have been organizations like Dying with Dignity Canada who have been pushing again for the fact that there should be access, and again pointing to the fact that they do believe that this is again a matter of charter rights. And senators, again, in the dissenting report, certainly saying that, this is not a determination that should be made by the committee, and that this should be referred to the Supreme Court of Canada. And again, the question becomes, what does the government do in the face of this report? Yesterday, it thanked the committee for its work and said the minister will be reviewing the findings, which is a pretty standard answer for this. But we'll be waiting to see what the Carney government does in terms of next steps and how it moves ahead on this file.
Right, because currently the expansion is set to take effect on March 17th of 2027 unless Parliament intervenes. Where do things go from here, to your knowledge?
Yeah, I think really what happens next is the House of Commons is going to rise for the summer break, which always happens. And there is going to be certainly work that is taking place inside the Federal Justice Department, Chloe, on this very issue, again, reviewing the committee findings and also looking at the potential for legislation to, again, respond to the committee's report, and also that very timeline that you just mentioned, kind of that looming March 2027 timeline. But given the parliamentary calendar, it looks like like if the government were to introduce a bill, which again would be required in order to change that March timeline, it's likely that that would not be tabled until October, just because the House doesn't come back until the end of September. So, they're going to be looking at, if they bring forward legislation, which we at the Globe are expecting them to do, at least to either delay the implementation timeline or, again, maybe to shut this down. We don't know what their determination will be, but they will need to get that legislation passed, ahead of that spring timeline. They do have a slim majority in the House of Commons that will help with the efforts to get a bill passed.
Christy, really appreciate your research and insights on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe.
Christy Kirkup is the national health reporter with the Globe and Mail. The time is 6:28. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Still to come on the show, it's the end of an era for an iconic Canadian program. It's an instantly recognizable tune there. Hockey night in Canada is, however, coming to an end. We're going to look back on the impact the show has had on Canadians from coast to coast, coming up on Information Radio. Also, speaking of sports, when it comes to security and crowd control, AI is changing the game for police and transit agencies during the World Cup. Coming up, our tech columnist Francis Sims will join us to talk about how other Canadian cities might be weighing it for their own festivals and parades. And don't worry, we will talk about the upcoming game that Canada is playing today in Vancouver. From the news I'm seeing, Captain Alphonso Davies is cleared to play, but we're not quite sure whether he will be on the pitch for this game. Turning to a bit of traffic news here, we got a call from Vic on the commuter line saying that there's a stalled car at the corner of Fermor and Lagimodiere heading northbound. Again, there's a stalled car at the corner of Fermor and Lagimodiere if you are heading northbound. Thank you very much, Vic, for that call. If you see anything else out there on your commute that is slowing you down, call our commuter line 204-788-3093. But right now, it's time for your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 9 degrees. We are going to warm up. 21 this afternoon is our high. Bit of a northwest breeze and a mix of sun and clouds today. At least 3 Winnipeg outreach groups are vaccinating their workers against hepatitis A. An outbreak of that highly contagious virus that's lasted more than a year has infected hundreds of Manitobans. Public Health says the number of cases is still growing, especially among people experiencing homelessness. Organizations in Winnipeg working to support the unhoused can now vaccinate their staff. StreetLink's founder, Marion Willis, says her non-for-profit had a pop-up clinic this week.
For as long as Hep A continues to be a challenge out there, then I think it's incumbent on all of us to do what we can to prevent the spread of that disease and to stomp it out if we can. The way that you do that is by making sure that vaccines are available to people.
StreetLinks is holding another vaccination campaign later in the summer. The North End Women's Resource Center has a clinic scheduled for next week. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued a travel advisory for Manitoba because of the Hep A outbreak. An advocate says Manitoba has to do more to make healthcare accessible to newcomers. The child of a work permit holder was about to lose coverage on their 18th birthday. The child has leukemia, and doctors said they can't leave the country for care because of their condition. Fredericton-based migrant activist Tracy Glynn says she is thankful the province decided to make an exception in this case, but adds it speaks to a broader issue.
Canada and the provinces are failing migrants. We see this across the country. Manitoba not giving access to healthcare for international students, for example. That's not the Medicare that the founders of Medicare, of public universal healthcare, had in mind.
Health Minister Uzoma Asaguera says they have been in contact with the family who won't have to pay for the child's care. Winnipeg police are asking for your help finding a missing 15-year-old boy. Carter Behrens was last seen yesterday just before 9 in the morning near Beverly and Notre Dame. Police say they are concerned for his well-being. The teen is 5'9", medium build, short black hair and brown eyes, wearing black and gold-framed glasses. Behrens was last seen in a black hoodie, long black jean shorts with white stars, black Nike runners, and a white backpack. If you have seen Carter Behrens or know where he might be, contact police. The province has put Hanover School Division on notice. That's because the division has declared students who are mature minors can't seek health care services without their parents' consent. The move flies in the face of provincial law that anyone over the age of 16 has the right to make their own health care decisions. CBC's Christopher Garreau asked Education Minister Tracy Schmidt if health clinics and counselors in Hanover can still provide health care to older students without that parental consent.
We would expect the clinicians to comply with the law. Yeah.
What's the law?
The law is that mature minors can provide consent for their health care.
Schmidt met Monday with the school board. Hanover School Division has 20 schools across southeast Manitoba. The U.S. and Iran have signed a memorandum of understanding aimed at ending the war. Donald Trump used his state dinner at France's Palace of Versailles to pen his signature. Among other things, the interim agreement would end hostilities with Iran and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It would also include a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, although Israeli officials are saying this morning the military will remain in Lebanon. Ukraine has launched its largest attack on the Moscow area since the start of the war. An eyewitness videos the moment a drone slams into an apartment building in the Russian capital. The defense ministry says about 200 drones were intercepted near Moscow. Some did make it through, striking an oil refinery on the outskirts of the city for a second time this week. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. The nonprofit that oversees the funding, planning, and programming of amateur sports has a new leader. Evan Andrew takes over at Sport Manitoba. He replaces outgoing president and CEO Janet McMahon, who retires after some 40 years in sport governance and administration. McMahon got the top job at Sport Manitoba during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic.
That was a very difficult time, trying to interpret the public health orders and what could happen, what couldn't happen. And people were very upset that certain things could and certain things couldn't, and the fact that kids didn't have the opportunity to really get any physical activity.
Andrew credits McMahon for leaving Sport Manitoba in good shape, but says it still faces challenges like attracting and promoting volunteers, making sure facility demand keeps up with supply, and continuing the push for diversity and accessibility. And Team Canada is back on the pitch at the World Cup today, with Canada playing Qatar in Vancouver. The game gets going at 2 o'clock Central Time, and Canadian captain Alphonso Davies is cleared to play after a hamstring injury. Last week, Canada tied Bosnia in its first game. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Big day, Heather. Big day.
Are you going to be watching?
Oh, why not? I'm not like a devoted soccer fan, but Team Canada playing anything, I can get behind it.
Yeah.
Are you going to watch?
Oh, absolutely. I've been watching so much, as much as I can.
Okay.
Like yesterday, England's game between, it was oh my goodness, now my brain is failing me. But England was incredible because it was a high scoring game. Amazing, amazing soccer.
Amazing. They played against Croatia.
Thank you.
Yes, there we go.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you to Sierra Sanders
and
for helping us with that.
Croatia played really well too.
So I'm going to come to you with all my soccer questions. Thank you, Heather. Perfect.
Just don't ask me who's playing who. Apparently, I don't know.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Joining us now is Abby Adiemi, here to talk about weather. But Abby, have you been taking in any World Cup action?
Oh, I've been consuming a lot of
Okay, so I've got so many
lately.
people to ask my questions to. Perfect.
And I just, it's just a new part of the water break that still can. I'm used to them going the whole 45 minutes
Right.
for the first half.
The water break. It's
that
contentious.
That water break at 24 minutes is like, I just want you to go for the whole 45.
Yeah, there's a lot of opinions on that one.
So that's me. That's just me.
Abby, I know there's a watch party today outdoors. What's weather looking like?
Well, for the city, we're starting cool. We're going to see temperatures this morning really going to be hovering between 9 and 10 degrees before we get to a high of 21 later in the day. But so it means you're going to have like a good watch party for the game later today. And that's the condition across the south, though we might notice some showers just in the afternoon period, but that's not it might not even get across board, but we will notice just afternoon showers pushing through some areas later. In the southern region, similar conditions, 8 to 11 degrees, more than towards the Headingley area. We're seeing 9 degrees there, cloudy, a mix of sun and clouds later, heading to 21. Also Brandon towards Nipper is looking at cloudy at this time, 10 degrees. We will get to 19. There's a slim chance of showers in the afternoon. Dauphin, you're at 7, enjoying lots of sunshine right now. 19 is your high for the day. Well, for the Power Flame Flow, we're looking at 10 degrees there. Also seeing mainly cloudy conditions. You're aiming for a high of 16. There's a slim chance of showers in the afternoon. Norway House, seeing light rain at this time. Highs around 13. Thompson, 7 and cloudy. Heading for a high of 13. A good chance of showers in the forecast. While for the Gillam area, we're seeing light drizzle there. 5 degrees at this time. Are you just really going to stay around 5 degrees for most of the day? Similar conditions around Tuduli Lake. Few showers heading to a high of 12. Current temperatures at 7. While for the Churchill region, 1 and mostly cloudy. Some fog patches spotted here and there, and breezy northern winds. High would just be around 2. So it's more like sunny, breezy, and a mix of sun and clouds with damp conditions in the northern part. High of 21 for Winnipeg today.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Abby Adiemi. Joining me now, show director Sierra Sanders with an update on the commute.
Yeah, Chloe, had a call from Vic just before we went into our CBC local news here. I mean, you mentioned that there was a stalled car at the corner of Fermor and Lagimodiere heading northbound. So you want to keep that in mind there as you head out on your drive if that is on your commute today. But other than that, here, things are looking pretty good so far this morning. But if that does happen to change, I'd love to hear about it. Whether you are here in Winnipeg or anywhere else in the province, give me a call. That number is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Well, time for our business report. Crystalie Ramlakan joins us now. Good morning. Oh, we are just working on connecting with Crystalie's audio here. We can see her on the YouTube live stream, though. Let's see. There we go. There you are. Good morning, Crystalie. Hello. First off, how are the markets reacting following the U.S. and Iran signing a memorandum of understanding aimed at developing a permanent peace deal to end the war between their two nations?
Well, shares are mostly lower in Europe. However, benchmarks in Japan and South Korea surged to new records after the U.S. and Iran signed their initial agreement aimed at ending the war. Oil prices have fallen. This agreement has, things in it to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And that rally in Asia followed a retreat yesterday on Wall Street, though, driven by speculation that the Federal Reserve may raise interest rates this year to curb inflation. So the S&P 500 slumped 1.2%, and that's after the Fed released projections showing nearly half its policymakers foresee at least one increase to its main interest rate this year. So the Dow dropped more than 500 points and the NASDAQ tumbled more than 300 points. And as we know, higher rates can tap the brakes on inflation, but they can also slow down the economy and hurt prices for investments. And Canadian stocks were also weighed down yesterday. The S&P TSX was down 264 points.
Next, the CRTC is continuing to go after telecom fees.
Yeah, that's right. So Rogers is the latest big three telecom to get a warning from the CRTC over new fees. So new rules that took effect Friday ban telecoms from charging customers when they activate, charge, or cancel their cell phone plans. So the CRTC wants people to be able to take advantage if there are good deals out there without having to worry about fees, right? But these rules, they do include exemptions for fees related to optional services or products that consumers agree to purchase, such as add-on equipment that is not required to deliver the service. Now, the commission says it's aware Rogers has started charging customers a new $40 device setup fee, a $25 shipping fee, and an unspecified SIM card fee. Now, Rogers says its device setup charge is applied to the optional purchase of a device, including smartphones, tablets, and watches. And the company argues its new charges should qualify as optional and be exempt from the new policy. Now, Bell and Telus have also claimed their fees should be exempt when they received similar warnings from the CRTC. So it'll be interesting to watch and see if the CRTC has any teeth here to actually get these companies to stop charging people these fees.
Lastly, Crystal, Apple says it's going to raise its prices. What's the justification?
Yeah, so Apple plans to raise prices on its products to offset increasing memory and storage chip costs. So that's from CEO Tim Cook in a Wall Street Journal interview. And a surge in AI-driven demand for data centers has forced consumer electronics companies into a fierce competition for dwindling supplies, which is driving prices sharply higher. So groups representing automakers, retailers, electronics firms, and others had warned earlier this month that the increasing demand for memory chips could lead to dramatic price hikes in consumer goods and disrupt supply chains. So Cook says the company has been doing its best to mitigate the huge increases that are being passed on to it. He says the company has been trying to shield customers from increases, but the situation has become unsustainable. So Cook, who will hand over the reins to John Turnus in September, did not disclose when or how much prices could rise, nor which products could be impacted specifically. So we'll still have to wait and see if we can get any details on that. And the latest for Apple here, it is reportedly on track to release its first foldable iPhone in September, alongside the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max.
All right. Thanks, Crystal.
Okay, thank you.
That was Crystal Ramlakan with the business news. Well, it's the end of an era. Since 1952, CBC's Hockey Night in Canada has broadcast NHL games to homes all across the country. That all ended when CBC and Rogers Sportsnet announcing that the public broadcaster will no longer carry NHL hockey. The end of Hockey Night in Canada is something that our next guest considers a big loss. Craig Baird is a Canadian historian and the host of the podcast Canadian History X. Craig joined me yesterday on Up to Speed and talked about the origins of Hockey Night in Canada.
Well, when we think of Hockey Night in Canada, we usually think of it being on television, but it dates back even farther. It kind of gets its origins way back in the early 1930s when you had a train, the Canadian National Railway train network was broadcasting games on their radios with Foster Hewitt. And then in about 1936 is when you actually get the name Hockey Night in Canada. So, those early years, families would gather around the radio and listen to the games and picture it in their heads. And then, like you mentioned, in 1952, Hockey Night in Canada debuts on television. And it was actually a really big reason why people were starting to pick up televisions, is because they wanted to watch hockey games. And a lot of arena owners, especially Toronto and Montreal, were worried about that. So when it first started broadcasting, they wouldn't broadcast the first part of the game. It would start broadcasting in the middle of the second period to ensure people actually went to the games and didn't just stay home to watch the games.
So you just had to kind of imagine what happened in the first half if you weren't there?
Well, you probably just listened to it on the radio, and then once
There
it
you
switched
go.
over, you'd go and listen to it or watch it on television. But yeah, by the 1960s, they finally were broadcasting the entire games.
Yeah, and these days, if you leave the house, you can turn on the game probably on your smartphone if you have the right app. How big of a deal was it back then to have hockey broadcast directly to your TV all across Canada?
It was a pretty big deal. It was appointment viewing for a lot of people. On Saturday nights, you would sit down and you would watch Hockey Night in Canada. And for years, through the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, it was the number one program in all of Canada. We think of things like the Beachcombers and such. Those were always second in terms of viewership to Hockey Night in Canada. And there were so many future hockey stars and hockey icons who would watch Hockey Night in Canada and dream of, one day eventually appearing on it themselves.
Hockey is we think of it as such a quintessentially Canadian thing, but would it be as intermeshed with our identity if Hockey Night in Canada hadn't existed? Like, what role did the program play in that?
Well, I think it did play a role in popularizing it because you had hockey all over Canada before Hockey Night in Canada. But for somebody growing up in, say, Saskatchewan or Manitoba or Alberta, there was no way that you could go to Maple Leaf Gardens to watch a hockey game or the Montreal Forum. So this was how people were able to connect with those hockey stars and actually feel like they were watching the game or part of the game. And it goes back to those young kids who would be inspired to one day appear on, play with the people that they're hearing about on the radio or seeing on the television. So it really helped kind of popularize it throughout Canada by getting many more people interested in it rather than just a few people playing local hockey. You had a lot of people actually dreaming about getting to the NHL.
Craig, we've been talking about some of our favorite Hockey Night in Canada memories. Our newsreader, Julie, talked about how it was the soundtrack to her getting to stay up a little bit later than usual as a kid. What does it bring up for you when you think about the program?
Well, as soon as I hear the theme, I mean, we called it the Canada's second national anthem because it was so ubiquitous. But I remember very clearly watching the Oilers win the Stanley Cup in 1990 on Hockey Night in Canada and being able to watch, with my family. I grew up on a farm outside of Edmonton, and Saturday nights we would watch Hockey Night in Canada. I remember the theme song to Coach's Corner, the theme to the game, Bob Cole calling games. It's all just kind of ingrained in there in nostalgia, no different than Mr. Dress Up for Me.
That was Craig Baird. He's a Canadian historian and the host of the podcast Canadian History X. I spoke to him yesterday afternoon on Up to Speed. And on your CBC News website, there's a great article about watching and now paying to watch games on Sportsnet now that the NHL games won't be broadcast on CBC. Head to cbc.ca/news for all the details there. Coming up to 6:50, and from assisted surveillance cameras to drones and body cameras, AI is changing the way police and transit agencies handle crowd security during this World Cup. We're seeing it in Canada's two host cities, Vancouver and Toronto, but the technology and the practices around it could end up being used beyond the tournament. Francis Sims covers tech issues for us and joins us this morning. Good morning, Francis.
Good morning.
So what are some of the new technologies Vancouver and Toronto are adopting?
Yeah, so let's start with Vancouver. So in Vancouver, the police now have these latest body-worn cameras that can do real-time language translation, I think in up to 50 languages. So you can imagine a scenario where a young child is lost from their parents, maybe speaks French, runs to the officer looking for help. The officer doesn't speak French, but the body camera does, so it'll translate it from French to English. The officer can then understand it, speak back to the camera in English, and it'll translate it back to French. So that's a potential game changer for situations where there's large groups of people that might not speak the language that's in the host city, like the World Cup. And the second thing that they have access to is 6 new drones that are sitting on top rooftops in Vancouver. And so say an officer sees, 100 feet down the road, there's some disturbance, but they can't get there because there's throngs of people. Well, they can basically press a button and the drone will fly over the disturbance to see, maybe it's just people excited, maybe there's nothing going on, maybe somebody's sick and they're trying to help them. So that's a potential game changer, right, in terms of being able to do real-time response and potentially save lives more quickly. Now in Toronto, the Transit Authority is using drones to figure out crowd control. So like last night, there was a game between Ghana and Panama, and Ghana won, and then all the crowds moved to like one central square in Toronto. Well, the transit authority is able to use these drones flying overhead to figure out where to deploy buses, because what they realized in that situation is not everybody was leaving the stadium right away. In fact, they needed to divert where some of the buses were going to. So that was really, really helpful in that situation, because it helped them to, effectively not have constables deployed all over the city and have the buses get to where they need to go more quickly.
What could some of this mean for other cities in Canada beyond the World Cup?
One of the things for community organizers is that running events has gotten very expensive, in part because of the security costs. You have to hire a number of private security officers or off-duty police officers. Great jobs, great, good pay for those people that need that work. But the problem is many events don't run anymore because the costs are too high. And so this technology has the ability, if used properly, and we'll talk about that, to reduce the costs, because you might have one or two drones flying overhead, and then you have a smaller group of private security officers or, first aid people that are in a more centralized location that can then get deployed based on what they're seeing from the sky. So that could be a potential game changer and a way that AI is actually helping Canadians.
So there's a number of potential uses and benefits, but what are some of the concerns here?
Yeah, it really comes down to data. We talk about data an awful lot when we talk about AI. It's who's collecting the data, where is that data being stored, how is it being accessed, and does it get deleted when it's done? In Canada, there's good privacy rules that basically say data that's collected for a specific purpose can't be used for something else. So in this situation, if it's being used for crowd control, it can't be used down the road for, say, facial recognition. And law enforcement across the country said they're never going to do that anyway. So that's the big thing. And then the second thing is, what happens to the data when the event is over? Is it deleted? Is it saved? If it's stored, can somebody do something later on with it that they shouldn't have done? Or can then it get cyber attacked, and then you're dealing with some ransom situation down the road? So those are two big concerns that people have flagged.
Do we know how World Cup's host cities are addressing those concerns?
So the privacy commissioners in BC and Ontario set out a few guideline principles, which I think could be used by communities across the country. One is that, like I said, the data can only be collected lawfully. So the community organizers need to make sure they consult with the privacy commissioner or the local law enforcement. It can only be used for the purpose that it was intended. So that's number one. That's what they say. The second thing is that it has to be transparent. So if data is being collected on people, there needs to be signs telling them as much. The third thing is, when the event is done, the data needs to be deleted, and the equipment that was being used for that surveillance needs to be removed. And the fourth thing is that there needs to be basically rules in the contract with the suppliers, because if you're, say, buying equipment, well, the suppliers are storing the data on their servers. There needs to be some legal obligation that they're going to protect Canadians' data as they're collecting it and get rid of it when it's over.
Francis, as festivals, parades, and events continue to grow and organizers look into some of this tech, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, so I think be curious, because it's a good opportunity. It may take 6 months, another year, before it really becomes viable for most communities. But find a local person to talk about the technology. There's great institutions, post-secondary institutions, small businesses across the country that can help. And once you've found an expert, then think about three things. One is making sure that the collection of the data is transparent and it's time-boxed. You tell people that you're collecting it, and it's going to be deleted when you're done. 2, choose Canadian. Find a Canadian. Make sure you're storing the data on a Canadian server. Try to find a Canadian company to do the work. And then the third thing is basically just to make sure that there's community support, that the community understands that this is not something that you're doing. You're doing something to benefit the event and to make the event more affordable. And it's not something. There needs to be constant consultation, because there's a lot of anxiety around data collection these days, and so there needs to be some assurances that the community is involved and not just being told that it's happening to them.
Francis, really appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That is our technology columnist, Francis Sims. He's Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber Polytechnic. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen. Coming up to 6:57 here. Well, on the commute, according to Winnipeg Traffic Management Centre, Lagimodiere and Fermor, there is a stalled semi blocking the northbound curb lane. So keep left to pass. Expect large northbound delays. Again, at Lagimodiere and Fermor, there is a stalled truck blocking your northbound curb lane. Keep left to pass. Expect large northbound delays. If you see anything else out there on your commute that is slowing you down, no matter how you get around, you can always call our commuter line at 204-788-3093. Turning now to headlines with CBC's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, parents in the Hanover School Division in southeast Manitoba are being told they must make health decisions for mature minors. That move contradicts Manitoba law, which states anyone 16 or older has the right to make their own health care decisions. The move caught the attention of the education minister, who met with the division's board on Monday. And the new head of Sport Manitoba says one of his main tasks is making sure everyone has a chance to play. Evan Andrew says a big challenge remains ensuring no young athletes are mistreated or left on the sidelines, regardless of background, ability, or geography. We're going to hear from him in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, still to come on Information Radio. A new Probe research poll found more than half of respondents in Winnipeg say quality of life in the city is deteriorating. Do you agree? We're going to speak with a panel of Winnipeg residents about that poll. We'll hear how they feel about the city right now and whether they believe things can turn around. And of course, who are you cheering for in this World Cup? We'll be asking that question and talking about the growth of the Winnipeg soccer community. Those stories and more coming up in the next hour of Information Radio. World Report is next.
On the Current. When Tim Houston ran to be the Premier of Nova Scotia, he said he would fix that province's healthcare system. After 5 years in office, we'll talk to Premier Tim Houston about healthcare, housing, and whether he thinks Canada is working.
Canada is an incredible country, and I like it just the way it is.
That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The United States is once again threatening a military shakeup in Europe. At a meeting in Brussels, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth criticized NATO members for not joining the war in Iran. Many allies did not allow the U.S. to use their military bases in Europe. As Julia Chapman explains, Hegseth says it's time for NATO to step up.
NATO will be a two-way street.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth making it clear America won't fund Europe's defense. He says he's ordering a review of the U.S. presence on the continent.
Europe was not supposed to be a dependency of the United States.
Hegseth argues some allies still aren't stepping up their spending enough. So he says future American contributions to NATO will depend on those of other countries. That warning follows criticism from Hegseth that partners failed to help the US when it asked for support in the war in Iran. He was speaking at a gathering of NATO defense ministers in Brussels. In the context of European self-defense, they'll also be discussing the war in Ukraine.
We remain unwavering in our support for Ukraine.
Canada's Minister of National Defence David McGuinty speaking earlier. He's expected to announce a new tranche of weapons for Ukraine, along with Sweden and Norway. Overnight, Ukraine launched its biggest ever wave of drone strikes at Moscow. The city's mayor says 180 were intercepted. Some, however, penetrated air defences. This was the moment of impact as a residential building in Moscow was struck. Several social media videos also show the city's oil refinery on fire. It's the second time in a week the facility has been hit, according to President Zelensky. But the Kremlin says Europe is wrong to assume momentum is turning in Ukraine's favor. Julia Chapman, CBC News, London.
In Versailles, France.
This was not easy, I can tell you.
U.S. President Donald Trump signs a memorandum of understanding after the G7 summit. The interim agreement would end hostilities with Iran and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It would also include a ceasefire between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah calls the deal a great victory. Despite the pact, Lebanese media say Israeli strikes are continuing today in southern parts of the country. Israel says it has a right to defend itself. It is not planning to withdraw troops from Lebanon. Donald Trump's deal with Iran is facing criticism in Washington, including from within the president's own party. In an online post, Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana called the agreement the worst foreign policy blunder in decades. Democrats are also slamming the deal. Chuck Schumer is the Senate Minority Leader.
We are worse off than we were when the war started. The Strait of Hormuz under greater Iranian control now than then. No guarantees in any way on nuclear. And of course, the price of gasoline is going to stay high for a long time.
Schumer has called on Trump to brief Congress on the details of the deal. Trump has said he would consider that. The Alberta government is giving residents a one-time cash payment to help with affordability, but people in the province are skeptical about this promise of $100 for everyone. Julia Wong has the details from Edmonton.
Many Albertans are asking the same question. How did life get this expensive?
Affordability on the mind of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith as her government announces a rebate program that will put $100 into the wallets of nearly 3.4 million Albertans 18 and older. The province has seen a windfall from soaring oil prices, and Smith explains the new rebate replaces a fuel tax relief program.
So they would have paid on average $65 in taxes over the past quarter. So this is going to be a $100 rebate, and so it's $35 more than they would have got with the fuel tax program.
Edmontonians we talked to had mixed reviews about the payout.
And I don't even think it would cover a week of groceries.
$100 could be the difference between getting, necessities in life.
How much the expenses have gone up, that $100 doesn't compensate.
University of Calgary economist Trevor Toombs says the rebate makes sense.
The size of the rebate is pretty well calibrated to the size of the financial hit that the average Albertan has experienced over the past 4 months.
But a payout of this size could blow back on Smith, according to Brendan Boyd, a political science professor at MacEwan University.
If it's quite small, then I think you open yourself up to the criticism of, well, this isn't going to make any difference.
Whether it does or not will be up to Albertans to decide. They can start applying for the rebate July 1st. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
There is a funeral today in Mississauga for an Ontario provincial police officer. Constable Tarun Bali was killed on the job last week. He was hit by a car in the town of Hearst in the province's north. Family, friends, colleagues, and dignitaries are attending the service for the 29-year-old. The driver has been charged with first-degree murder. Bali was one of 2 officers killed in Ontario this month. Constable Mark Pinazzotto was shot during a raid in Toronto. That case was linked to a series of shootings across the city, including one at the U.S. consulate in March. 2 unions representing healthcare workers in Newfoundland and Labrador are demanding an investigation. Staff received email falsely promising a paid holiday. The message was supposed to be a cybersecurity test. As Abby Cole reports, it instead created a lot of anger.
It is very insensitive and very disrespectful to our members.
Healthcare workers in Newfoundland and Labrador say they have been overworked since the implementation of CoreCare, a new digital health information system. That's why an email offering a paid holiday in recognition of all their hard work came as a welcome surprise until they clicked the button to register and realized it was a phishing test. Registered Nurses Union President Yvette Coffey says nurses are extremely upset.
They feel disrespected. They feel they're angry. I don't blame them.
Phishing tests are simulated cyber attacks used to teach employees to be careful when opening emails. But president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of Public and Private Employees, Jerry Earle, says whoever put out this email should be disciplined or removed.
Whoever is responsible for sending this has to be dealt with, and then a full investigation to make sure this never happens again.
NL Health CEO Ron Johnson called a press conference Wednesday afternoon to address the situation.
I just want to sincerely apologize to our employees over this. This really missed a mark. What was intended to be a cybersecurity test, obviously the scenario that was painted was in poor taste and wasn't reflective of the values of Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services.
Johnson says the health authorities started investigating immediately and says an update should be available within a couple weeks. Abby Cole, CBC News, St. John's.
It is a big day for former U.S. President Barack Obama. More than 9 years after leaving the White House, he is celebrating the opening of a center with his name. The CBC's Magda Gabrisalasa has the details.
Enjoy the celebration. Bring your family, bring your friends.
It's a legacy-making milestone for Barack and Michelle Obama. The Obama Presidential Center opens today with a star-studded celebration. The $850 million project in the Obama's hometown of Chicago includes a museum, library, sports space, and more across 8 hectares.
For us to be able to give that to this community is really important to us.
Christina Aguilera, Bruce Springsteen, and John Legend are just some of the big acts set to take the stage. But one notable figure won't be at the event, President Donald Trump. Trump, who has criticized the Obama project, has faced some hits to his own ambitions lately. After a federal judge ordered it, he removed his name from the Kennedy Center. And Trump announced he himself would headline his Great American State Fair next week, after a wave of artists like the Commodores and country star Martina McBride backed out of performing.
This isn't just about, who gets the more A-list stars at their event.
Clodagh Harrington is an American history and politics lecturer at University College Cork in Ireland. She says when it comes to comparing Trump and the legacy of the Obamas,
they have high cultural legitimacy. I don't think that is something that we can say about the Trumps.
When the glory comes. The opening ceremony starts at 12 p.m. Eastern. Magda Gabrisalasa, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on our YouTube live stream or on your CBC News app. Coming up on the show, as you've been hearing in the news, a new probe research poll found more than half of respondents in Winnipeg say quality of life in the city is deteriorating. Do you agree? We're going to speak with a panel of Winnipeg residents about that poll. Also, 2 down, 8 to go. 10 lucky winners are off to see the Sea Bears on June 30th. Could you be next? Stay tuned for contest details at 7:40. And who are you cheering for in the World Cup? We'll be asking that question and talking about the growth of the Winnipeg soccer community coming up first on Information Radio. It's time now for news headlines with CBC's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Outreach workers at Street Links rolled up their sleeves this week for a hepatitis A shot. The not-for-profit is one of at least 3 outreach groups trying to curb the spread of the virus by vaccinating staff. A year-long hepatitis outbreak in Manitoba has infected hundreds of people and at least 4 people have died. An advocate says Manitoba has to do more to make healthcare more accessible for newcomers. The child of a work permit holder was about to lose coverage on their 18th birthday, and that child has leukemia. Doctors said they couldn't leave the country for care because of their condition. A migrant activist says she's thankful the province decided to make an exception in this case, but says governments are still failing migrants. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Well, hello and thank you to the team on the show this morning. Darren Morash is our YouTube live stream producer. Abby Adiemi, our technical producer, and also our weather guy. Can I call you weather guy?
It's okay. Call me the weather guy.
It's pretty informal, but that's who you are.
A crisp start to Thursday, I'll tell you, Chloe. We're seeing this stark north-south split today, bringing more like some kind of cool conditions across most of the regions, but down south, more cloudy, while we'll be seeing rain in the northern part of the province. Here in Winnipeg, we are starting the day with partly cloudy skies. Current temperatures near 10 degrees. Expect a pleasant day ahead as we climb to a high of 21. However, the winds will be picking up, becoming windy from the northwest later this morning, and we'll see more partly cloudy conditions into the evening, where we have that slim chance of showers into the overnight period. And across the southern regions, we're looking at from the Pembina Valley region all the way to the Interlake, we're seeing cloudy and cool temperatures, and looking at daytime highs just close to 21. But up north, more about damp and overcast. That's what we're getting there. Temperatures between 2 and 10 degrees right now. Winnipeg, we're aiming for 21, and we're at 10 right now.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Abby Adiemi. I am now joined by Sierra Sanders, our show director, with an update on the commute. How's it going out there?
So far, it's sounding like things are moving smoothly, except for that stalled semi that we're seeing at Lagimodiere and Formore. So that stalled semi is blocking the northbound curb lane. So you want to keep left to pass and expect large northbound delays. I'd gotten a couple of calls earlier that were talking about stalled cars, but it's sounding like it's a stalled semi. And I remember one of the callers mentioning that it was backed up backed up all the way to Sage Creek there on Lagimodiere there. So it is causing quite a bit of backups early this morning. But if you have an update on that, I'd love to hear about it, or something new that's popped up on your commute, give me a call. That number is 204-788-3093.
Canada plays their second match at this year's World Cup tonight. That game is at 5 p.m. Central Time. A correction there. We had the wrong time earlier in the show. Canadians might be crossing their fingers for a FIFA win, but other soccer fans in this country have soccer loyalties outside of Canada. CBC's Matt Humphrey spoke to some Winnipeggers with Portugal roots about how they choose who to cheer for.
Força Portugal!
So, if it came down to like Portugal and Canada going at it, who would you cheer for?
Portugal.
Why? Why is that?
Because I was born there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it goes deep.
Very deep.
But I cheer for Canada when Canada plays, and I cheer for Portugal when Portugal plays.
But if it was Canada v Portugal,
I still go for Portugal. Yeah. That's where my blood is.
Totally.
My heart's Canadian and blood runs Portuguese.
Hey, you know what? If anything happens to Portugal, go Canada.
Let's go Portugal! Woo!
See?
CBC's Matt Humphrey speaking with Portugal fans yesterday. Well, Winnipeg FIFA fans have certainly been showing up for this year's World Cup. And Assiniboine Park is hoping fans also show up at their free watch party tonight. A giant screen will be set up at the Lyric Theatre for those who want to watch Canada play Qatar at 5 p.m. Central. Scott Dixon will be there. He's the executive director of the Winnipeg Youth Soccer Association, which will have reps at the watch party tonight. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Nice to see you.
First things first, who are you cheering for this World Cup?
So I, similar to the previous Winnipeggers there, I have a couple teams, I would say. My background is English. However, I was born and raised in Canada. So whenever England's playing, I'm absolutely going for the Three Lions, but of course, cheering loud and proud for Canada.
I'm going to echo Matt's question then. If it was Canada versus England, what do you do?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I maybe I'll get one of those jerseys that have half and half Canada, half England,
Yes.
and then cheer from there.
Or a little DIY, a little sewing project for you there.
Sounds sounds good.
The Winnipeg Youth Soccer Association is going to be at Assiniboine Park at the watch party tonight. What will you be doing there?
Yeah, that's we're really excited about this watch party. We've been able to link up with Assiniboine Park Conservatory. Also, Virgin 103 is going to be there, and Manitoba Soccer. We're going to have some activities, some activations, some prizes, and just kind of bringing football to life for this amazing watch party and for this experience for hopefully a lot of people that come out to cheer our team on.
While you've been with the Winnipeg Youth Soccer Association, how have you seen soccer culture grow or change over the years?
That's a great question. This sport truly is international. The great thing about Winnipeg is it's such a melting pot. There's people from all walks of life and from everywhere around the world, and that's a true reflection of the game as well. So, we see people playing from who are from all parts of the world and continue to show their love in the game.
As it grows, are there enough teams, enough programs to kind of keep up with the demand?
Absolutely. We in Winnipeg here and surrounding areas, there's quality soccer providers all across the city. The programs that our organizations are doing are incredible. They're offering many different services to the players. So every need that's out there, our member organizations are able to meet.
Scott, soccer fans are always passionate about the sport, but what happens in the community when the World Cup is on? How does that kind of change the energy?
I would just think it emphasizes it. It really gives it a louder voice too. As I mentioned, we have a very, very passionate community. The ties to the game are deeply rooted in the country from wherever that host country is. And it's fantastic to see the jerseys, the pride, the smiles and love for the game that everyone has. It's fantastic to see, and this is an incredible month to truly see it as well.
There's nothing quite like the World Cup. One of my favorite parts of this has been watching the news broadcasts and seeing fans from other countries meeting other fans and just everybody coming together despite cheering for different teams. What do you think it is about soccer that brings people together in that way?
That's a great question. We were fortunate enough to have the Women's World Cup hosted here in 2015. So to be able to see that firsthand, seeing people from across the world, they're all together for a common goal. Football unites everyone. And that's what we're really seeing here. And now to see this in North America with the 3 countries that are hosting, Canada is fortunate to be able to co-host. It's a remarkable thing to see.
What's your pitch for Winnipeggers to come out to the watch party tonight at Assiniboine Park?
What I would say is, hopefully somewhere in Winnipeg, Toronto, Vancouver, Halifax, or a small country or a small community across Canada, there's a young player who's going to be watching the World Cup and then dreaming that they're going to be able to play on this stage one day as well, similar to so many players that are playing for the Canadian team right now. So coming out to this event can be a part of that dream as well, and something that people hopefully will remember for a lifetime.
Scott, really appreciate you joining us this morning, and have so much fun tonight at the park.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
That is Scott Dixon, Executive Director of the Winnipeg Youth Soccer Association. The Canada versus Qatar match will kick off at 5 p.m. tonight, but there will be pre-game festivities at Assiniboine Park beginning at 4. Well, we're going to continue the World Cup fever with Puerto Rican singer Ricky Martin, who brought global energy to the 1998 World Cup. This next track served as the official anthem for the tournament in France. Here's La Copa de la Vida.
of life, this is the one. Now is the time, don't ever stop. Push it along, gotta be strong. Push it along, right to the top. Como Caín y Abel, es un partido cruel. Tienes que pelear por una estrella. Consigue con honor la copa del amor. Para sobrevivir y luchar por ella. Luchar por ella. Luchar por ella. Do you really want
Well, good morning. That is Ricky Martin with La Copa de la Vida. That was the track to the 1998 World Cup in France. Scott Regehr, doesn't that just make you want to kick a soccer ball really hard?
That's some grand fromage right there from our friend Ricky Martin.
Some good stuff.
It is. I have to say, it does, hold, if you're open-minded about things, musically, that is a song that holds up after all these years. Brings me back to,
I'm
Zinedine
energized.
Zidane and the 1998 World Cup.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're ready to go. You're ready to rock and roll, Scott. You've got your jersey on.
Alphonso Davies, you betcha.
And there's some good news about him.
Yeah, Les Rouges are welcoming back their Grand Etoile. And not just one big star, two of them. Davies and Moise Bombito have both been deemed fit enough to play against Qatar this afternoon. Now, whether they start is a different matter, but just having the side's most important defender and its most dangerous attacker available, well, that's a major boon. So is playing this arguably must-win match in Vancouver. Coach Jesse Marsh admits the opening week of the World Cup based in Toronto, where they tied their first match against the Bosnians, had its challenges.
For us, the first week was a little crazy, I'll be honest. There was a lot of fanfare, and it was a little hectic and chaotic around the team. This week has been calmer, and I think we're more used to the rhythm of what the media demands are, what the feeling is inside the country and the city. So I think in general, the team is more focused and more prepared for what this match will need, and I expect a lot of players to be ready to perform at their best.
There is a growing expectation, Chloe, that a couple of those players will be winger Ali Ahmed and striker Kyle Larin. Neither started against the Bosnians, but when they did come in as subs, they changed that game. Larin's late goal helped Canada secure its first ever World Cup point. Against Qatar today, they'll be going for 3 more points, which should be enough for them to clinch a berth in the knockout round. Prime Minister Carney will be amongst those in attendance as that match kicks off from Vancouver at 5 o'clock Central Time.
Could be a history-making game. Scott, Canada aside, what has stood out for you at the World Cup so far?
The strong play of sides from Africa. Ghana, Chloe, scored in the final minute last night in rainy Toronto in beating Panama, which means African sides have now earned at least a point in 6 of the 10 games that they've played. That includes the Democratic Republic of Congo holding Cristiano Ronaldo in Portugal to a 1-1 draw yesterday, a result that led to no small celebration back home in the DRC.
We followed our country's match, and we are very proud of our team. Even though we faced difficulties obtaining visas to travel to America, we are very happy to see our team perform at such a level. It shows we are fighters. We will fight, and we will continue to be fighters from the beginning to the end. Thank you very much.
Because of the Ebola outbreak in Central Africa, Chloe, Congolese supporters were subject to a 21-day quarantine and immigration suspension, severely limiting their ability to attend this tournament. The country's World Cup squad has been granted a special exemption, but has been training in an isolated bubble to ensure they don't pose a public health risk. And despite all of that, they put in a hugely impressive performance against Portugal yesterday. The most impressive game so far by an African side, though, has to be the one that saw tiny Capo Verde hold powerhouse Spain to a draw. In that one, 40-year-old goalie Vozinha shone, but later lamented the fact his mom couldn't be there because of the high cost of an American travel visa. Well, good news on that front, Chloe. The U.S. State Department says it's going to waive all fees and help make travel arrangements so that mom and son can be reunited for Capo Verde's next match in Miami. That's Sunday against Uruguay.
Oh, I adore that.
Yeah.
Scott.
Some good publicity for the U.S. State Department there.
Yeah.
I think they might have saw that, yeah.
Beyond soccer, because there are sports happening beyond soccer right now, surprisingly. What's going on in the sports world?
Well, the Blue Jays go for a sweep at Fenway Park tonight with Trey Savage on the mound. The Gold Eyes, 8-3 losers to Lincoln last night. While in hockey, the Golden Eyes.
With the first overall pick in the 2026 PWHL draft, the Vancouver Golden Eyes select defenseman KK Harvey.
A coup for the Vancouver Golden Eyes, getting Caroline Harvey from the University of Wisconsin. She was the MVP at the Milano Cortina Olympics for that U.S. gold medal winning team. And that's what's going on in sports outside of footy.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
You betcha.
That is CBC Sports' Scott Regehr. It's time now for your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, we've got blue sky. We will see some clouds move in this afternoon. We're at 10 degrees right now, warming up to 21 today. Outreach workers at Street Links rolled up their sleeves this week for a hepatitis A shot. The not-for-profit is one of at least 3 Winnipeg outreach groups trying to curb the spread of the virus by vaccinating staff. Michelle Wesley at Street Links works with people experiencing homelessness. Public Health says they are among the most vulnerable to contracting the disease, and that's why Wesley says she got vaccinated.
You don't want other people getting sick, whether they're in encampments or in housing, things like that, especially in encampments. People who tend to share a lot of things, sleep in the same areas and tents. So it's very easily transmitted that way, right? Especially when you don't have proper bathrooms.
A year-long hepatitis outbreak has infected hundreds in Manitoba. At least 4 people have died. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has issued a travel advisory for Manitoba because of the Hep A outbreak. Advocates say a ruling against a young cancer patient shows barriers faced by immigrants trying to access care. The decision by Manitoba's Health Appeal Board says the child of a work permit holder couldn't keep their coverage after turning 18. It says they would have to get a work permit under current rules. Well, Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says they have been in contact with the family and the child won't have to pay. But the Manitoba Health Coalition's Noah Schultz says the situation speaks to a wider problem.
We have in some ways a 2-tier healthcare system already in Manitoba and other provinces, although Manitoba does fairly poorly in terms of providing public health coverage, whether it's international university students or others who are contributing to our communities in Manitoba but aren't getting that coverage.
Schultz says the NDP needs to address those barriers, including making good on a promise to bring back public coverage for international students. Winnipeg police want your help finding a missing 15-year-old boy. Carter Behrens was last seen yesterday just before 9 in the morning near Beverly and Notre Dame. Police are concerned for the teen's well-being. He is 5'9", has medium build with short black hair and brown eyes, wearing black and gold-framed glasses. We do have his photo up on our website. If you've seen Carter Behrens or know where he might be, call police. Parents in the Hanover School Division in southeast Manitoba are being told they must make health decisions for mature minors. Now, that move contradicts Manitoba law, stating anyone 16 or older has the right to make their own health care decisions. The move caught the attention of the Education Minister. Tracy Schmidt met with the Hanover School Board on Monday.
We have concerns about the policy. We have concerns about how it will be interpreted against the current regulatory and legislative framework that we have in this province, which, by the way, has existed since 1993.
In an email to CBC, Hanover Chair Dallas Weeb says the board voted in favor of the measure after hearing from parents who had concerns with trust, communication, and transparency. The U.S. and Iran have signed the Memorandum of Understanding aimed at ending their war. Donald Trump using a state dinner at France's Palace of Versailles to pen his signature. Among other things, the interim agreement would end hostilities with Iran and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It would also include a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, although Israeli officials are saying again this morning the military will remain in Lebanon. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is telling his NATO counterparts Europe must take responsibility for the defense of Europe. Defense ministers from the alliance's member states are meeting in Brussels, and Hegseth telling them the U.S. is launching a review on the positioning of American forces in Europe.
Make no mistake about it, this will be a real review. It will be designed to ensure that NATO is moving fast and irreversibly toward Europe leading, stepping up to take primary responsibility for the defense of Europe, stepping up to ensure our forces are postured for America's global needs.
Hegseth also lashed at NATO colleagues for not providing the U.S. enough support for its war on Iran. You can hear the latest national and international news on World Report at 8. The new head of Sport Manitoba says one of his main tasks is making sure everyone has a chance to play. Evan Andrew takes over after 9 years at the nonprofit that oversees the funding, planning, and programming of amateur sports. He says the organization's in good shape and doesn't need any big fixes, but a big challenge remains ensuring no young athletes are mistreated or left on the sidelines.
Safe sport is really at the top of our priorities, a commitment to making sport accessible and inclusive and safe so that more Manitobans can participate regardless of their background, abilities, or geography.
Andrew replaces outgoing President and CEO Janet McMahon. And Team Canada is back on the pitch at the World Cup today with Canada playing Qatar in Vancouver. Canadian captain Alphonso Davies is cleared to play after a hamstring injury. See the mistakes I'm making? And I do have to correct a mistake I made last hour. The time that Canada is playing Qatar in Vancouver is 5 o'clock Central Time. When I saw it earlier, I just assumed Eastern, but it was actually 3 Pacific. So 3 Pacific is 5 Central. That's when you can catch that game. You can catch more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather, it is, to your credit, so confusing because there's games in Vancouver, there's games in Toronto, Mexico, the U.S., all different time zones kind of spread across there. So, yeah, it's a lot to keep track of, but we got it. 5 p.m.
Finally, we got it.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Abby Adeyemi joins us now, a big World Cup soccer fan. Also here with the weather, which is good to know because there are some outdoor watch parties today for that game.
And for that outdoor watch party, we're already seeing the sunshine really crack through those cloudy conditions we're seeing out there. So we're seeing more like, clouds shifting to sunny conditions in the southern parts of the province, while up north we're still faced with these cloudy skies and rain in some locations. Here in the Red River Valley region, we're looking at a cool start to Thursday with partly cloudy conditions and the sunny skies peeking through. Temperatures between 8 and 10 degrees depending on where you are in the city. Windy conditions will peak up from the northwest later, and we head to a high of 21 just before a slim chance of overnight showers. So there won't be showers during the games. It's just going to come probably after the games. If you look at the temperatures across the south, we're seeing 8 to 11 degrees. Morden is at 10 right now, aiming for 21. Brandon is at 11, aiming for 19. A slim chance of afternoon showers. In the Parkland region, we see temperatures around 10 degrees. In the Dauphin area, sunny skies you have, warming to 19. Gimli is at 8. Cool conditions there, tracking 19 as your high. While for the Power Flame Flow, we're looking at 10 degrees and cloudy skies, aiming for a high of 16. A slim chance of rain in the forecast. Noel's is at 9 degrees, light rain falling at this time. You get to 13 later. Thompson is at 7, also aiming for 13. Lynn Lake at 8, aiming for 12. Gillam at 5, aiming for just going to stay around 5 degrees. While in Tudula Lake, we still have a few showers falling there. You aim for a high of 12 degrees. Current temperatures around 7. Well, for the Churchill region, we're seeing those chilly conditions, 2 degrees and cloudy, high you're just going to stay around 2 for today. So overall, it's more like a mix of sun and clouds in the south, while we still see those damp and rainy conditions across the north. Winnipeg expecting a high of 21 today, depending on where you're in the city. You might be seeing 8, you might be seeing 10 degrees right now.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Abby Adiyemi. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio. Also joining me is show director Sierra Sanders with an update on the commute.
Hi, Chloe. Yeah, it's been pretty quiet on the commute so far this morning. Haven't gotten a ton of calls on the commuter line. So to me, it sounds like things are moving pretty smoothly out there. And some good news, that stalled semi that we were seeing blocking the northbound curb lane at Lagimodiere and Former has been cleared. So no need to worry about that stalled semi. All lanes are open to traffic, but might just take a little time for traffic to catch up there. So, but you are smooth sailing, hopefully, through there. But again, if there is something that pops up on your commute, whether you are here in Winnipeg or anywhere else in the province, I would love to hear about it. So give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Well, coming up next on Information Radio, a new poll suggests almost half of its respondents don't want Scott Gillingham to serve another term as mayor. Probe Research surveyed 600 adults in late May and early June on behalf of the Winnipeg Free Press. It found 46% of respondents don't want Gillingham to keep his job. The survey also found that 2/3 of respondents in Winnipeg think the quality of life has deteriorated in the city over the last 4 years. CBC's Bartley Kivas asked Mayor Gillingham for his reaction.
People are frustrated. I'm frustrated too. I think if you look at, another question in that poll, was 8% of the people polled thought a different mayor could do anything different. And so it doesn't dissuade me. I think, I take it seriously, but we'll continue on with the focus on increasing public safety, working to address homelessness, addiction, and the crime that goes along with it, focus on housing. So the priorities I've had will very much be the priorities we continue to build on over the coming months. Well, obviously it can be discouraging because I know how hard our teams are working. I know how hard council's working to try to address the concerns that people have. People are frustrated. The top priorities that people identified in that poll are my top priorities. Public safety, homelessness, addiction. There's too much addiction on our street. There's too many people who are struggling with homelessness. There are too many people who are, using drugs, and when people see that, there could be a sense, for sure, of concern, of frustration, not wanting that to be our city. I don't want that to be our city either. That's why we're working on it.
In what manner does this change your campaign?
Well, everyone who followed the 2022 campaign knows that polls come and go, right? And that polls go up and down. It doesn't necessarily change our focus and our strategy. But it helps us refine a couple things. One, we've been doing a lot of good, making a lot of progress. Obviously, that message is not getting through the way it needs to. We need to do a better job of getting the message to our community of the good things and the progress we're making on some of these issues. Crime rates are actually down statistically. We're adding more police officers. We have increased housing supply. In a 4-year period, we've approved more housing than in any other 4-year period in Winnipeg's history. We just worked hard with the federal government. We have new bail laws coming in right now. So our economy, we're focused on the sky economy with all the opportunities for the future. A lot of progress has been made, but we need to make sure that people understand that message. I can give people all the stats that are positive stats in the world. That doesn't matter if people don't perceive that it's safer. I was just this morning with businesses on Portage Avenue near Sherbrooke, where there's a lot of problems going on right now. I asked people what's happening there. We talked, we met, there's people using drugs openly. I've told our chief of police I can't direct him, but I'll sure support him if he cracks down on open drug use. I'll make it clear. I want to see that happen. I want to see people that are openly using, that be enforced, that they can't be doing that anymore. In that area of Portage and Sherbrooke, the property owners there tell me that with the people that have been moved into transitional housing by the province, that some of that has spilled over. Maybe there's not enough supports. We got to make sure that there's the right amount of supports as well for people. Excuse me, sorry.
All right.
That was Mayor Scott Gillingham speaking with CBC's Bartley Kivas. Now, still to come, we're going to speak with 3 Winnipeggers to hear their thoughts about the quality of life in this city. This comes after a Probe research poll found most respondents in Winnipeg says the city has gotten worse over the past 4 years. That conversation is coming up just around 7:50.
Manitoba may have a reputation for being cold and flat, but our podcast isn't. I'm Marcy Marcusa, the warmest host on the prairies. Even when my podcast, This is Manitoba, is exploring some challenging issues. I'm never flat when it comes to holding our leaders to account. Some of those interviews have been called spicy. If you care about this province, check out This is Manitoba, with new episodes dropping every Wednesday.
The time is 7:44. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen. Well, Darcy and David are the first 2 Manitobans to win tickets to the Winnipeg Sea Bears game on June 30th. And now they also have a chance to win a free throw contest live on this very show to try and win upgraded VIP seats to that game as well. But they will be heading to the line with 8 others. Could you be one of them? CBC Manitoba is a proud sponsor of the Celebrate Canada game on June 30th. The Sea Bears face the Saskatoon Mamba in the Canadian Elite Basketball League. And to win tickets, we have been asking you to tell us your stories about bears. Could be your own story, could be one you've heard from a friend, a polar bear, black bear, stuffed bear, sea bear. You could also share videos as well. You can email your entry to win@cbc.ca or call us at 204-788-3205. And who will today's winners be? Our first is an email from Michelle Gauthier, who wrote, "When my dad, who is now 87 years old, was a young man, he lived in Churchill. He went out for a jog, and after a couple of miles, he heard a noise, turned his head to glance back, and saw a polar bear chasing him down the main street. He ran full out as fast as his legs could propel him. Finally, when he thought he was nearly done for, the bear suddenly turned the corner. It was only then my father saw the RCMP car chasing the bear out of town. The bear had only been running for his life too, not chasing my father for lunch after all. He tells us he has never ran a mile so quickly in his entire life. Olympic speed." Thank you, Michelle, for that story. And we also got this call.
Hello, my name is Bill from Portage, Bill Miles. I was once hiking in British Columbia with a pair of dogs that disturbed a bear, and they came running back down the trail towards me with the bear chasing them, and of course they hid behind me, and the bear came close enough I could count the hair on its muzzle. Anyway, with standing up and yelling, the bear put on the brakes like a cartoon and turned around and ran away again. But it was very exciting for a moment.
What a story. Congrats to Bill and Michelle. You are both today's winners. And as I mentioned, all 10 winners chosen will be invited to hit the basketball court live here on Information Radio on Friday, June 26th to compete in a free throw competition to decide who is also going to win VIP tickets to the game. So folks, get those tickets upgraded. So enter now. Tell us your bear story. Call us 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. Or email us win@cbc.ca, win@cbc.ca.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
2 minutes to 7:50. You're listening to Information Radio. I'm Chloe Friesen. Well, more than half of respondents in a new poll say the quality of life in the city has deteriorated over the past 4 years. Probe Research surveyed 600 adults in late May and early June on behalf of the Winnipeg Free Press. Crime and homelessness were some of the top issues facing Winnipeg. The poll also found 46% of respondents say they don't want Mayor Scott Gillingham to get re-elected. Curtis Brown is a partner with Probe Research.
I do think there's two things that are kind of true here. One is that I think that, yes, definitely some people are cynical about whether the city's, elected officials are going to be able to actually make any kind of difference. I think the other side of it is that some people are also realistic, and they also recognize that, some of these problems are really significant, and maybe the municipal government on its own doesn't have the ability to fix some of these problems. It's requiring also, the efforts of other levels of government, the private sector, that sort of thing.
That was Curtis Brown, a partner with Probe Research. Now, we wanted to have a deeper discussion about this poll. So joining us now, we've got a panel of guests. Natalie Smith is a resident in Winnipeg's North End. Chelsea Bannatyne is also a North End resident. And we are joined by Danielle Robidoux, a St. Boniface resident and the member of their neighborhood coalition. Good morning to all of you. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, Natalie.
Morning.
Good morning. I want to start with you, Natalie. You live in the North End. How long have you lived there?
Just under a decade now.
Okay.
So, yeah, quite some
What
time.
are your thoughts on what respondents had to say about some of the issues facing Winnipeg?
Yeah, I had a chance to review the poll yesterday, and it wasn't surprising to me. I think it's very evident that a lot of these issues, I think that have always been around, have become a lot more visible in the last decade or so, probably less than that. And so it's not shocking to see the results of this poll. And I think people are just very frustrated. There's so much right now, whether it's the cost of living, whether it's, concern for, the unsheltered neighbors who, just aren't getting the supports that they need. And I think it's just causing a lot of people to be very frustrated and hurt and concerned about what the future looks like, for sure.
Chelsea, I want to turn to you. What are your main concerns about the city right now? Do they kind of line up with what you saw in the poll?
Yeah, similar to Natalie, I feel that it's not surprising. I'm not surprised at all. And some of the concerns, being a resident in the community, are safety and the crime rates. And then you're looking at the homelessness, and I think that's directly tied to poverty. And there's a long history of deeply entrenched poverty in the inner city and the core neighborhoods. And so, yeah, I think a lot of the residents are frustrated, and they have a lack of trust in municipal governments, or I would say the systems and all levels of government, to actually address these issues.
Part of this is also the fact that almost half of respondents said that they wouldn't re-elect the current mayor, but not a lot of people responded saying they had any hope that anyone else would make a large change at all. Danielle, I want to turn to you. How do you feel the mayor has done during his time?
Well, I haven't had a lot of dealings with the mayor myself, but I think recently our kind of neighborhood coalition has been working quite a bit with the kind of civic system, let's say. So there's developments all around Ismearans happening. So we're concerned about housing here in St. Boniface. So that people talk a lot about the housing crisis, but I think we're looking at it now today. For example, in central St. Boniface, we're tipping towards 70% rental properties and 30% home ownership. And so we're seeing the problems of the future kind of starting today, because we're flooding this neighborhood with rental properties without true meaningful development. So, we're adding another 120 unit building, another 120 unit building, without working across all three levels of government on the infrastructure needed for this influx of people to a certain neighborhood. On top of that, the city, there are city staff working, developing city plans, and these developments are not aligned with the city plan. So really what's happening is the councillors and I guess the mayor, their boss in general, is not following the city plans laid out by their own city staff, but instead following the wants of developers, not really the needs of communities. So, thinking of even in Central St. Boniface, adding another large scale apartment building without adding infrastructure. I know that's at different levels of government, but like daycare, education, they need to work together rather than just try to get a grant from the federal government to increase housing without thinking about wraparound services for people that are needed. Further to that, housing is they just keep plunking down these large scale apartment blocks. But what's needed is, we have people with disabilities, elderly folks who are needing services, who are needing different kinds of housing, and we're not looking into that.
Natalie, do you see, as we approach an election in the fall, do you see hope in a new group of folks in City Council and City Hall, perhaps a new mayor? Do you see that having any weight in kind of impacting some of the issues you were talking about?
I mean, I think that potentially new councillors or a new mayor could play a role in that. But I think ultimately what I've learned in the last few years in particular is that it's really going to take people organizing in their own communities and coming together. And really, no matter who is at City Hall, you have to have that strong community base. And I mean, just some examples in the last couple of years, there was a, potential cut to the arts funding, and the arts community came together. And that's one area that gives me a lot of hope is our arts community. It's thriving. There's so many great cultural institutions in this city. And, just an example, I'm involved in the music community. I know a bunch of people who've actually moved to Winnipeg specifically because of that. And so if we can work on our strengths, if we can build off of those, I think Winnipeg's going to be in a lot better of a space. And those are things that we need to build off of. We still absolutely have to address the major issues that we're facing. And as Chelsea mentioned, like deep entrenched poverty, these problems aren't going to go away on their own. But if we work collectively together and we build stronger community organizations, I think we're going to be in a much better spot.
And Chelsea, you've mentioned that you want some of these root problems to be looked at holistically. What do you mean by that? How would you define that?
Okay, yeah. I guess for me, being a strong proponent for a holistic approach, I mean that it's going to require more comprehensive strategies and planning, and I feel like it's going to require cooperation from multi-level governments. It's going to require multi-sectoral collaboration as well. And then I think that one aspect that they're failing to consider or actually include in these decision-making processes are the communities themselves and the organizations. There's a lot of Indigenous leaders and community organizers that have been basically saying all of these issues have been ongoing for decades, and a lot of promises have been made but are not fulfilled. And so taking a holistic approach is looking at the most pressing issues in our community and saying like, okay, addictions and mental health and housing, like we need to have all these sectors working together to coordinate like access to health, better health, mental health, addictions, and long-term treatment facilities, 24-hour safe spaces, and mobile crisis units. I mean, I can go on and on. So, yeah.
I'm cognizant that we're almost out of time here, but I do want to ask, and if you can keep it as short and sweet as possible, how hopeful are you for the future of Winnipeg? Danielle, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. Like Natalie said, I see hope in the communities that are surrounding me and communities across Winnipeg, the grassroots kind of movements that will bring us there.
Thank you, Danielle. And Natalie, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that there's always going to be positivity. The other thing, is, whether, we always talk in the North End about the North End spirit, and we're going to get things done no matter what, everything is just a little speed bump in the way. And I feel like that's a very Winnipeg attitude as well. We're going to get through this, and we're going to do it maybe a little begrudgingly, but we're going to be stronger because of it.
And Chelsea, what about you?
Yeah, I feel that the communities that I'm from were very resilient. And so I think we just need to mobilize and come together and also hold our leaders accountable.
Well, Natalie, Chelsea, Danielle, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
That is Natalie Smith and Chelsea Bannatyne, both North End residents. Danielle Robidoux is a St. Boniface resident and a member of the Neighborhood Coalition. We're going to quickly head to Heather Wells. Oh, just kidding. We've run out of time. My apologies. You're listening to Information Radio coming up in the next hour of the show. We're going to head to the city of Morden, where new traffic bylaws are in place for those who ride e-bikes or e-scooters. Stay with us. World Report is next.
On cue. I'm Angeline Tettaway sitting in for Todd Power. Natalia Lafourcade is one of the most influential voices in modern Latin music. And last summer, her songs became the soundtrack for the children of Mexican immigrants who are fighting back against ICE raids. She'll be here to tell you about that and her incredible story. Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. An hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
When Tim Houston ran to be the Premier of Nova Scotia, he said he would fix that province's healthcare system. After 5 years in office, we'll talk to Premier Tim Houston about healthcare, housing, and whether he thinks Canada is working. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The United States is once again threatening to shake up its military presence in Europe. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is at NATO headquarters in Brussels. He blasted members over their defense spending and says it is shameful some EU allies did not allow U.S. forces to use their bases to launch strikes on Iran.
Europe was not supposed to be a dependency of the United States. That's not what Winston Churchill or Charles de Gaulle or Konrad Adenauer wanted or expected. No, Europe was supposed to be a military power, allied with a strong America.
Hegseth also used the meeting of defense ministers to announce a full review of U.S. forces in Europe. Washington has repeatedly threatened to push back against allies, including a formal troop pullout from Germany last month. Hegseth says this latest 6-month evaluation will look at exactly where all remaining soldiers are stationed.
It's a review that some countries will fail and others will pass with flying colors. In the end, the review is intended to both improve U.S. force posture and basing and strengthen NATO 3.0.
Hegseth says the alliance must move quickly toward a model where Europe takes primary responsibility for its own conventional defense. Pakistan says a deal between Iran and the U.S. is in effect. They're the key negotiators who helped broker the agreement. The Memorandum of Understanding calls for the full resumption of maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz and the end of the war on all fronts. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing has the latest from northern Israel.
We hope that it will end and there will be peace, but we don't sure now.
Yoshi Lucci, CEO of Shalomi Local Council, says there have been many signings in the past, many declarations of peace. His community sits meters from the border with southern Lebanon and fears the threat hasn't been removed.
I don't think until Hezbollah will go from Lebanon that this will end.
The ending, he says, must come through diplomacy, not military actions.
This was not easy, I can tell you.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed the 14-point Memorandum of Understanding ending the war with Iran yesterday in France after the G7 gathering. He called it a major win. Iran's top negotiator, Mohammad Bakr Ghalibaf, called it a failure for the U.S. Trump withdrew one of his initial reasons for attacking Iran with Israel more than 3 months ago, now saying it would be unfair for Tehran not to have ballistic missiles, having previously vowed to obliterate them. A senior Israeli official told Reuters there have been, quote, stubborn negotiations with the U.S. on the issue of continuing its deployment of troops in southern Lebanon. Yesterday, one Israeli soldier was killed, 7 others wounded. The soldiers were walking near the Litani River when there was an explosion. Israel launched multiple strikes on Lebanon. It claims to be targeting sites used by the Iran-backed militia Hezbollah, flattening Lebanese communities in the south in the process. The Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, previously described the agreement as a positive factor pushing towards peaceful solutions and ending the state of war. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Shlomi in northern Israel.
Ukraine targeted Moscow with a large drone strike today. The attack hit the Russian capital's oil refinery for the second time in a week. A drone also slammed directly into a nearby residential building, injuring 16 people. Russian officials claim they shot down dozens of drones over the capital. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his strategy is working. He says targeting infrastructure will force Russia's Vladimir Putin to negotiate. India's largest city is facing a water shortage. Mumbai has not been this dry in 20 years. There's no rain, and monsoon season is late. Susan Ormiston explains how that is affecting India's financial capital.
It's hot and humid inside Mumbai's crowded city market, with vendors wondering, where's the monsoon? Fruit seller Vijay says with the delayed rains, fruit prices have gone up. The fruits are spoiling more quickly, and mangoes especially don't last. The annual rains, which help water this country and break the heat, are coming late in Maharashtra state. Mumbai has imposed new water restrictions. Anwara merchant says we're getting heat rashes. There are 2 washrooms here, and only one is working because of the water restrictions. Scientists are predicting a weakened monsoon this year, impacted by an El Niño weather system developing over the Pacific, coupled with prolonged heat waves in India last month. Reservoirs in this region have dropped to just 25%.
So more frequent heat wave conditions, longer duration also. This year especially we have felt it.
Bikram Singh, lead meteorologist here, says the rains have started in the south but stalled.
Weak monsoon is problematic if you don't get enough rain in this country.
Certainly, because 80% rainfall, what we annually we get, 80% we get from the monsoon.
Wow.
Yes, so Indian economy, it depends on the monsoon.
There's time enough through the summer, he says, to replenish reserves, but the rains need to come soon and remain steady. Next week is the hope. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Mumbai.
Toronto police have arrested a 19-year-old man in connection with an alleged gun-for-hire network. It involves a March shooting outside the U.S. consulate in downtown Toronto and the death of a police officer 1 week ago. Constable Mark Pinazzotto was shot and killed during a search warrant. Zara Jabi is facing several charges, including possession of a restricted firearm. Another man, 19-year-old Nicholas Bennett, was charged with first-degree murder. Jabi appears in court later today. Wildfires engulfed Newfoundland's Conception Bay North nearly a year ago, and rebuilding is still a struggle for the people who lived there. Laura Howells explains.
We knew the house was gone, but when we came in, saw it unbearable.
When fire swallowed George McNeil's house, only the chimney was left standing. But now a new house is sprouting up. Wooden beams, pink insulation, and 2 rocking chairs waiting on the porch.
It's going to be a nice house when it's done, but we had a nice house before too. So
fires consumed more than 200 homes in this area last year, burning over 10,000 hectares, rare destruction for this province, leaving tree skeletons and blackened ground. But now construction also dots the landscape.
So there's a lot of houses being built here right now.
Mark Plowman is deputy mayor for a town in the region.
It's some relief because some of them have been living in other accommodations or trailers, since the fire.
He stands near huge piles of debris and tree cuttings. So many people clearing up, the town has to figure out what to do with it all. But not everyone can rebuild.
People who didn't have insurance still, looking for how they might be able to return to the community.
Jo Hogan hopes her new house is ready soon, but it doesn't get her old life back. fire forced family to move farther away.
I lost my home, which was devastating, but I feel like I lost my daughter and my children.
She's nervous about the coming fire season, but looks forward to simple pleasures.
You know, I just can't wait to go home and go to bed.
Laura Howells, CBC News, Conception Bay North.
A sea of red and white is taking over Vancouver today. Canada plays its second match at the Men's World Cup. The team faces Qatar this afternoon. The CBC's Dan Burrett has a look at the energy in the city.
We will have our banners, we will have our flags, we will have smoke.
Team Canada supporter Darcy Kerr is inviting thousands of fans to join her for a march to BC Place ahead of the game.
Everybody's being asked to wear red, be loud, show your support for Canada, get ready to be holding banners, singing, waving flags. Come with your friends, your family.
Kerr's partner, Mike Brazell, says Team Canada is setting an example for future players.
This has set the pipeline, I think, up now for a long time for us to be in the World Cup and deserve to be there and make people afraid of us.
And Darcy's sister, Nikki Brown, is visiting from Calgary. Amid concerns about Alberta separatism, she says Team Canada is a great focus.
And just enjoying the atmosphere of what it is when we all come together to celebrate a team.
Fans of Qatar are also feeling confident.
During the game, we are fighting Canada. After the game, we are brothers and we love Canada. Give me a hug.
Okay. Ian Tostenson with the BC Restaurant and Food Services Association says business at some bars and restaurants is up 40%.
It's igniting an enthusiasm in the city that we haven't seen in a long time.
And Destination Vancouver says hotel bookings are up for June, with committed occupancy at 65%. Dan Burrett, CBC News, Vancouver.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on our YouTube live stream or anywhere on the CBC News app. Coming up on the show, personal electric vehicles, PEVs. They seem to be everywhere these days. And as e-bikes and scooters become more popular, there's been some confusion around the rules of the road. But in Morden, Manitoba, new traffic bylaws are now in place. We're going to speak with their chief of police about that coming up first on Information Radio. It's time now for news headlines with CBC's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, outreach workers at Street Links rolled up their sleeves this week for a hepatitis A shot. The not-for-profit is one of at least 3 Winnipeg outreach groups trying to curb the spread of the virus by vaccinating staff. A year-long hepatitis outbreak has infected hundreds in Manitoba. At least 4 people have died. Winnipeg police are asking for your help finding a missing 15-year-old boy, Carter Behrens, last seen yesterday morning just before 9 near Beverly and Notre Dame. Police say they are concerned for his well-being. He's 5'9", medium build with short black hair, brown eyes, and wearing black and gold framed glasses. My colleague Darren Bernhardt just put up a photo of this missing teenager on our website. Head to cbc.ca/Manitoba. If you've seen him, call police. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Hello, and thank you to the team on the show this morning. Darren Morash is our YouTube live stream producer. Abby Adiemi is our technical producer, also here with a look at the forecast.
The sun and the clouds just playing peekaboo this morning. It's like you see cloudy and then you look outside, it's sunny again. That's what we'll get to start the day. Those cloudy conditions will be clearing out in the southern regions, while up north we're seeing more about the showers and the foggy conditions as we move towards the Churchill area. But here in Winnipeg, the Red River, the Pembina Valley region, we're looking at partly cloudy skies with the sun peeking through at intervals. Temperatures really hovering between 11 and 13 degrees depending on where you are. Expect a mix of sun and clouds as we climb to a daily high of 21 across most of the regions in the south. But up north, it's more about cool temperatures. We're seeing 2 to 12 degrees, depending on where you are. A blend of clearing skies in the south and a mix of showers and foggy conditions up north. Winnipeg, 11, 12, 13, depending on where you are now, heading to 21.
Lovely. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Abby Adeyemi. Show director Sierra Sanders joins us now for an update on the commute. Hi, Sierra.
Hi, Chloe. Well, there's not much to update you on because there hasn't been much happening out there on the commute so far from what I've heard. The commuter line's been pretty quiet this morning. So to me, it sounds like your commute is running pretty smooth. But if that's not the case, we still have a little bit of time left in the show. So whether you are here in Winnipeg or anywhere else in the province, I'd love to hear what you're seeing out there. So you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number's 204-788-3093.
E-bikes and e-scooters are fast and efficient modes of transportation that rules and regulations are struggling to keep up with. While speed limits, age limits, and vehicle classifications were recently addressed provincially with the passing of Bill 43, the Highway Traffic Amendment and Drivers' Vehicles Amendment Act, in Winnipeg, officials are still determining what bylaw changes might make sense. But in the city of Morden, they have some very specific new rules in place for personal electric vehicles. And joining us now with the details is Morden Police Chief Sean Awney. Welcome to the show, Chief Awney.
Good morning, Chloe. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us. Talk us through these 6 new rules.
Okay, so essentially, just to start off, the approach we took for this was more of a safety approach first, and then for our police service, we saw ourselves as a role to educate the public and especially the youth. The rules that we have are mandatory helmets for the riders of these e-scooters or the PEVs, only one rider permitted at a time, not to be riding on sidewalks, and riding as close as possible to the right-hand curb, similar to a bicycle would be. And then generally just the other rules are just to obey all the other traffic laws and rules, and then just for proper equipment and lighting if you're going to be driving these at nighttime. That's basically the 6.
All right. So what safety concerns kind of prompted this new bylaw? What were police seeing in Morden?
Well, I think we saw the shocking part was some of the really young riders and how fast these things could go, and just that there was no helmets being used, and it was kind of known that these were unregulated and there was no laws regarding them. So that's kind of what prompted us to think we should probably do something with just safety in mind, especially for the youth.
With young people using these PEVs, are there any age restrictions included in the bylaw?
No, we didn't go with age restrictions at this point. We thought, let's just go safety. Let's go with those helmets, where they should be driving, because really up until this point, right, they weren't really being told where to go or where to ride. So we thought, let's just start with that stuff first.
With that, is there any concern that some young folks might not know all of the rules of the road? I know that's one of the bylaws is to follow just the general rules of the road, but I imagine kids who haven't yet been in driver's ed might not be aware of all of those rules.
Yeah, that's correct. So what we thought here is, well, how can the police help out with this? So our education will begin with, we have a community resource officer who's embedded in our schools. And we thought we already do bicycle training, bicycle safety talks. So we thought, why don't we just incorporate this and we'll start to teach them and we'll get them the knowledge they need to know to get out there.
All right. Are you going to be in schools? I think there's a couple weeks left of school. Are you planning on being in schools in Morden these next 2 weeks?
Yeah, we are. We have those going, and that was our plan was to try to do it before summer hit, right? And we do see like a educational approach first to this, and just to get the message out there, get the rules out there. Social media campaign. We appreciate you guys helping us get the message out there, and then also we're going to be looking for the parents here, right? This is a real community approach with our officers, our bylaw officer. And we're really looking for the parents here to help out if they see their young kids go off their driveway real quickly and without safety equipment. We're going to need them helping us out as well here.
There's the message for riders, but what about the messaging to the drivers of larger vehicles who will be sharing the road now with these PEVs?
Yeah, that also crossed our mind as well too. If we get a consistent message across where we expect these electric scooters or these PEVs to be driving, it helps them as well too, right? To be on the lookout for them. Anyone that's driven a motorcycle before knows that it's hard to see you on a motorcycle, let alone on these smaller pieces of equipment, and especially with smaller people, right? So hopefully that this is going to be everybody working together here to keep it safe.
Now, these rules were created specifically for the city of Morden. Why do you think it's important that cities and towns set their own rules with e-bikes and e-scooters and don't just follow a general template here?
Yeah, so when we were researching some of this, we noticed there had been some larger cities that have already gone into this bylaw mode. What we found was that there's quite a difference between urban traffic and using these as commuter vehicles. But when you come to the rural side of it, there are streets and there are places where these really could be used, and we believe in a safe manner too. So we thought, we'll tailor this and we'll try to make an approach work for our city and what works for us.
How will this new bylaw be enforced? Are police cruisers going to be pulling over scooters?
No, that's kind of where we're going to go with let's start with the educational part of it. Generally, we have a high compliance out here. So we'll just take it step by step. And there are fines that can be issued through our bylaw, through our ticketing system, but obviously revenue and that's not really our goal here. Just compliance and safety is kind of just what we're going to go for here.
What's an example of one of those tickets? Say someone's not riding a helmet while they're on an electric bike.
Yeah, so what they did was they assigned a $50 fine to all of those actually. So clearly it's not revenue based, or it's not with the intention of getting any revenue from this, but just that it's in place. And we've thought that how do we go about speaking to kids and offering them safety advice if there were no rules in place? So that's where us working together with our city and our council decided let's get some rules in place to start with, and then our officers at least have something they can be gearing towards and helping these kids out.
Sean, a lot of cities in Manitoba and across Canada are having these conversations about what rules they should put in place. What's your advice to other leaders, other police departments, when it comes to creating a set of guidelines or rules or bylaws around PEVs?
Well, I think that first and foremost, the cities, the councils, they'll know their cities better than anybody. So I believe that by doing these bylaws, they can tailor it to their own needs and to their own communities. And I think that that's the base of all the community policing, is to make something that works for everybody, right?
Sean, I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chloe.
Sean Awney is the Chief of Police with the Morden Police Service.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
2 Manitobans have already won tickets to the Winnipeg Sea Bears game on June 30th, courtesy of the Sea Bears and us here at CBC Manitoba. We've got a great contest going on, and there's 8 more chances for folks to win tickets to this game. CBC Manitoba is a proud sponsor of the Celebrate Canada game on June 30th. That's when the Sea Bears face the Saskatoon Mamba in the CEBL. And to win those tickets, we've been asking you to tell us a story about a bear. Could be your own story. Could be one you heard from a friend. Could be about a polar bear, a black bear, maybe your stuffed teddy bear if it's special to you and it's got a story. Or, of course, polar bears, sea bears. You can also share videos as well. You can email your entries to win@cbc.ca. That's win@cbc.ca. Or call us at 204-788-3205. 204-788-3205. We're going to have 10 winners, and then those 10 winners, this is really fun, guys, they're going to be invited for a free throw shootout on the 23rd 6th, I believe, and you have the chance to win upgraded seats. Yes, June 26th, live on Information Radio, a free throw contest with those 10 winners to decide who is going to win VIP tickets to that game. So enter that contest now. It's been so much fun reading and sharing those Bear stories. Well, let's end the show with some good vibes, some good music. Manitoba band Sunday Club blends catchy melodies with floaty vocal layers. They bring a distinct indie pop feel to the provincial music scene. Here's Sunday Club with Camera Shy. That is Sunday Club with their song Camera Shy here on Information Radio. Thanks for joining us. Sierra Sanders is back with a last look at the commute.
Yeah, I've just gotten a couple calls here in the last couple minutes. I got a call from Craig. He's in the Archibald area, and he said that a train went through there, and it was a long and slow train. And traffic, it sounds like the train had gone through, but it's taking traffic a lot more time to recover because of that train that's just gone through. It's long and slow, which I think are like the least favorite thing. Like those are the words you don't want to hear about a train.
Yeah, worst adjectives for a train.
Exactly. Thank you. So got a call about that. So if you're in that area, expect some delays because of that. As well, I got a call from Adam. He was driving down Gateway, specifically Gateway in Antrim. There was a fire truck blocking the southbound lane there. It sounded like a car had actually crashed into the trees. And so fire emergency crews are on scene dealing with it. And there was a firefighter directing traffic there, trying to keep things moving. But he said it was slow heading southbound there. So Gateway and Antrim, there are emergency vehicles on scene dealing with the situation there. They do have a firefighter directing traffic, trying to keep people moving, but expect some delays there. Still a couple minutes. I'm here for one more traffic hit, so if anything else pops up, 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Well, joining me now in the studio is host of Radio Noon, Marjorie Dowhouse. Marjorie, what's planned for today at 12?
Well, today we're talking about social media. Of course, we know a lot of countries are talking about banning social media, restricting it in some ways for youth, those under 16 and under. The UK is the latest country to have a social media ban. This follows Canada is also talking about the changes. Australia started all of this. So we're taking a closer look at what do you think of all these countries that are banning social media? What does this mean to hear more countries are joining this? And also there are other bans that youth are facing. Quebec is talking about sports drinks. We know the UK already banned vape sales for those under 16 years old. Are we over-policing our youth? And what is the impact on them? So give us a call. Join the conversation or text us, or you can leave a message on our listener line at 204-788-3797.
Thank you very much, Marjorie.
Thanks, Chloe.
Lots to talk about there. Make sure you tune in to Radio Noon at 12 o'clock. That call-in conversation usually starts around 12:15, so be prepared for that. Well, still to come on The Current coming up after the show. When Tim Houston ran for Premier of Nova Scotia, he said he would fix that province's healthcare system. After 5 years in office, he talks to Matt Galloway about healthcare, housing, and whether he thinks Canada is working. That's coming up on The Current, everywhere you get your podcasts, and this morning, just after Information Radio. Well, a big thank you here before we head to the news to the team this morning, to our associate producers, Jura McElwraith and Emily Enns. In the news team, Heather Wells, Aaron Broman, Darren Bernhardt, and Alana Cole. And of course, to our excellent live team, Abby Adiemi is our technical producer. Darren Morash is our YouTube live stream producer. And Sierra Sanders is our show director this morning. Nelly Gonzalez is our show producer, and Leif Larson is our senior producer of audio. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's time now for your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's 11 degrees. A few clouds out there. We're going to see that continue through the day, and a high of 21. Outreach workers at Street Links rolled up their sleeves this week for hepatitis A shots. The not-for-profit is one of at least 3 Winnipeg outreach groups trying to curb the spread of the virus by vaccinating staff. Michelle Wesley at Street Links works with people who are experiencing homelessness. Public health say they are among the most vulnerable to contracting the disease. That's why Wesley says she got vaccinated.
You don't want other people getting sick, whether they're in encampments or in housing, things like that. Especially in encampments, people tend to share a lot of things, sleep in the same areas and tents. So it's very easily transmitted that way, right? Especially when you don't have proper bathrooms.
A year-long hepatitis outbreak has infected hundreds in Manitoba. At least 4 people have died. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has issued a travel advisory for Manitoba because of the Hep A outbreak. An advocate says Manitoba has to do more to make healthcare accessible for newcomers. The child of a work permit holder was set to lose coverage on their 18th birthday. That child has leukemia, and doctors said they can't leave the country for care because of their condition. Fredericton-based migrant activist Tracy Glynn says she is thankful the province decided to make an exception in this case, but adds it all speaks to a broader issue.
Canada and the provinces are failing migrants. We see this across the country. Manitoba not giving access to healthcare for international students, for example. That's not the Medicare that the founders of Medicare, of public universal healthcare, had in mind.
Health Minister Uzoma Asaguera says they have been in contact with the family who won't have to pay for the child's care. Winnipeg police are asking for your help finding a missing 15-year-old boy. Carter Behrens was last seen yesterday morning just before 9 near Beverly and Notre Dame. Police are concerned for his well-being. The teen is 5'9", medium build with short black hair, brown eyes, wearing black and gold framed glasses. We do have his photo up on our website. If you have seen Carter Behrens or know where he might be, call police. Parents in the Hanover School Division in southeast Manitoba are being told they must make health decisions for mature minors. That move contradicts Manitoba law, stating anyone 16 or older has the right to make their own health care decisions. This move caught the attention of the Education Minister. Tracy Schmidt met with the Hanover School Division on Monday.
We have concerns about the policy. We have concerns about how it will be interpreted against the current regulatory and legislative framework that we have in this province, which, by the way, has existed since 1993.
In an email to CBC, Hanover Chair Dallas Weep says the board voted in favor of the measure after hearing from parents who had concerns with trust, communication, and transparency. In Versailles, France.
This was not easy, I can tell you.
The U.S. President Donald Trump signing a memorandum of understanding after the G7 summit. The interim agreement would end hostilities with Iran and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It would also include a ceasefire between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah calls the deal a great victory. Despite the pact, Lebanese media say Israeli strikes are continuing today in the southern parts of that country. Israel says it has the right to defend itself. It is not planning to withdraw troops from Lebanon. The new head of Sport Manitoba says one of his main tasks is making sure everyone has a chance to play. Evan Andrew takes over after 9 years at the nonprofit that oversees funding, planning, and programming of amateur sports in this province. He says the organization's in good shape and doesn't need any big fixes, but a big challenge, he says, remains ensuring no young athletes are mistreated or left on the sidelines.
Safe sport is really at the top of our priorities, a commitment to making sport accessible and inclusive and safe so that more Manitobans can participate regardless of their background, abilities, or geography.
Andrew replaces outgoing president at Sport Manitoba, Janet McMahon. Well, he has been cleared and is available to play. Canadian captain Alphonso Davies, as Team Canada is back on the pitch at the World Cup today with Canada playing Qatar in Vancouver. That game starts at 5 this afternoon Central Time. Last week, Canada tied Bosnia in the first game. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Go Canada, go.
Yes.
I know
absolutely.
You'll be watching, Heather.
Say that again, I'm sorry?
I know you'll be watching. You're a big fan.
Oh, I'll be watching for sure. For sure. I need to get a Canada t-shirt. I need to represent.
Yes, you can make your own. You're pretty crafty.
I don't think I can.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Sierra Sanders joins us for one last look at the commute.
Yeah, Chloe got a call from Craig about a train that had gone through the Archibald area, gave the adjectives as long and slow. So traffic might still be recovering from that train moving through the area. As well, got a call from Adam. He was driving on Gateway around the Antrim Street there. And he said that there was a fire truck blocking the southbound lane. That was due to a car that had crashed into the trees there. So he said firefighters were directing traffic, but it was slow heading southbound. So southbound Gateway at Antrim there, expect some delays.
All right, thank you, Sierra. Abby Adiemi with one last look at the forecast.
Yeah, we're seeing temperatures between 11 and 13. Under a mix of sun and clouds in the southern part of the province. Expect some breezy winds later with a high near 21, while up north cooler we're seeing 2 to 12 with cloudy skies and scattered rain showers. Winnipeg right now 11, 12, heading to a high of 21 under a mix of sun and clouds.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Abby. Lots of local programming throughout the day here on CBC Radio 1. Radio Noon starts at 12 o'clock, up to speed at 3 p.m. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chloe Friesen. I'll be back with you tomorrow. The Current is next.